If you can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. If you can remain standing, please, we have Dave Mitchell, our police chaplain, is going to give us our invocation.
Let's pray. Our Father God, as we come before you, we are thankful that we have you to look to and to lean upon and to trust in. God, we need your power, we need your wisdom, we need your guidance for all the issues that face our community. We're thankful for Santa Ana and for, Lord, the good work that already goes on throughout, for the citizens that are involved, and Lord, to help this place to be a great place to live and serve. God, I pray for our city council that you would bless them with extra wisdom and guidance. Lord, that there would be effective communication. Above all, Lord, I pray for peace and safety amongst our citizens and in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our homes. God, that there would be individuals looking to you and finding your grace, your love, to experience all that you offer to us. And we thank you, Lord, that we have you to lean upon. So we put in your hands all those who serve in our community, who are part of our law enforcement and safety personnel. God, we pray for your blessing and enrichment in each of their lives, and we commit them all to you now. And this time, tonight, in Jesus' name, amen.
Now, if you can be seated, please. We have a Dr. Charlina Piazza from the Orange County Human Relations Commission is going to give us a presentation. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, community members. My name is Dr. Kirina Piazza, OC Human Relations Commissioner, 4th District, and I'm joined by Norma Lopez, Director, Human Relations Commission. We're here to report on some of the work of our nonprofit organization, OC Human Relations, in the city of Santa Ana over the 2015-16 year, as well as present you with copies of our annual report. We believe that all people have a right to live free from discrimination and violence, so we provide programs to create safe and respectful communities. Our country has recently undergone a very divisive national election in which harsh things were said about various groups, leaving fear, anger, and mistrust in the wake. OC Human Relations believes that our mission to build understanding among our diverse residents is more important now than ever. This relationship building can contribute to a sense of community in our cities. OC Human Relations partners with cities to manage challenging issues such as lack of civil discourse, meaningful participation of all residents in the decision-making process, and overcoming the mistrust that can make every police community encounter more dangerous for both parties. Many of our programs are provided county-wide, but we would like to share the following information about our programs exclusively in Santa Ana. In 2015-16, we mediated 417 cases in the courts or community where at least one of the parties was a resident of the city of Santa Ana, 90 of which were family mediations. In collaboration with Santa Ana Police, we documented 10 hate crimes in 2015 and facilitated 7 Santa Ana community reconciliation cases. 1,572 Santa Ana youth participated in our restorative justice program aimed at reducing suspensions and expulsions at Valley High School. 1 Santa Ana youth participated in the year-long Human Relations Associates Internship Program. 54 Santa Ana youth participated in our day-long Walk in My Shoes symposiums at UCI and Cal State Fullerton, learning about respect, tolerance, and making a difference in their schools and community. We worked to build a sense of community among Santa Ana residents and staff through hate crime, victim outreach, and support, as well as provided a community building circle for youth in July 15 at the Corbin Center. we co-sponsored the Santa Ana Community Policing for the 21st Century Forum in September 2015, organized by Connect to Council. We supported their monthly meetings to build community leadership and strengthen neighborhood associations. We provided LGBT community police dialogues in July and August of 2015. In December, we visited the Santa Ana Sikh Gurdwara to express solidarity and condemn violence. In May, we provided an anti-bullying presentation to 60 Spanish-speaking parents at KidWorks. And in April, we visited the Masjid al-Hidayah Mosque to express solidarity and condemn violence. In conclusion, OC Human Relations has partnered with the City of Santa Ana over the last 25 years to bring police and diverse residents together to build safe and respectful neighborhoods, develop positive relations among the broad spectrum of Santa Ana residents, address community conflict and strife, and sustain a human relations infrastructure to serve cities when crisis situations occur. Just as important as the infrastructure of storm drains, curbs, and gutters are to the protection of Santa Ana residents is the human relations infrastructure of effective conflict resolution programs, trained professional staff, and positive relationships with diverse communities that can be called upon at OC Human Relations. At this time, if the mayor or designee would come forward, we would like to make a presentation. We would like to honor the City of Santa Ana for your support of good human relations in 2015-16 with a presentation of this certificate of recognition. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and accept the certificate on behalf of the council. Jose Solorio, I believe you're next on our presentations, and that followed by Councilor Juan Villegas afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a real honor for me to bring in some very distinguished individuals in our community. As you've heard me say before, one of our biggest assets in Santa Ana are our residential neighborhoods. We have many of them, some very nice ones, very active ones, but you really can't have great neighborhoods unless if you have excellent community and neighborhood leaders. And today I want to bring a few up as a group because they've been working as a team and developed a park committee with some tremendous positive outcomes. So I will invite them all up. We have from Floral Park, Deb Davis and Ed Murasashi. We have from West Floral Park, Donna Lane and Karen Mittendorf. From Jack Fisher, we have Kyle Kingston and Nikki Luna Hernandez. And from Morrison Park, we have Christina Dorsa Smith. They can all come up. Great, thank you. I'll say just a little bit about the committee, but I really want to talk to them. I want to have them speak more specifically about what they've accomplished. But this park committee was formed on May 16th of 2016. It is a 13-member committee made up of volunteers from 4 neighborhoods, Jack Fisher Park, Floral Park, West Floral Park, and Morrison Park. The purpose of the committee is to serve as a voice amongst the 4 neighborhoods surrounding Fisher Park. The park committee established a collaborative effort between the neighborhood associations, the Santa Ana Police Department, Parks and Rec, and Public Works. They have met regularly over the past 10 months and have had many successes already. There has been tremendous progress, great communication, advocacy, and promoting a positive image in the 4 neighborhoods. We want to congratulate these 4 associations and these leaders for their involvement. Let's give them a big round of applause. And I'd like one of you to speak on behalf of the group as well. And I do want Nikki to come up, and I'll call her out now. She's very shy and humble. You know, there's a good leader when a good leader says, you know what, I don't deserve all the recognition. Let's recognize everybody. You know, and that's the kind of leader that she is. I also know she's a great leader because each time somebody tells me a little bit about her, they have a list of 10 positive things to say about her. And so she's an amazing leader and really, you know, the glue behind this effort. And I know probably endless discussions on Nextdoor. I'm pretty involved on Facebook, and I haven't yet, delved into Nextdoor, but I know she's very involved there as well. So let's let her give her perspective on the work of this great committee. Please, Nikki.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Solorio, and thank you for all that are involved. We started a park committee in the 4 neighborhoods about 10 months ago. There were just a lot of negative elements that we started to notice kind of seeping into our local parks. And one of the, I think, greatest things about this committee is it really started from a lot of people, although it is a good mix, a lot of people that have never been involved in anything. So, a lot of first-timers in the group, and as Mr. Solero said, it just kind of organically grew into this collaborative effort with the support of the associations. And we have been able to accomplish quite a lot. The biggest things were getting parking zoned, no parking from midnight to 6 a.m. In front of our park. That enables PD to recognize people that shouldn't be there late at night. We also did a pilot time change, trial closure. And we're getting ready next month to make our final recommendation to the city. We tried kind of a winter-summer approach of hours, and that kind of took a lot of voices within the community to all come together, come up with an agreement on an evaluation of that. And then we're also part of this bigger lighting project that's 8 parks throughout the city are getting updated LED lights, and we are one of the 8 included in that. But aside from those big things, this is really just a matter of people caring about something literally in your backyard and getting together, having conversation, and figuring out ways to protect what's important to you. So I would also like to thank Councilwoman Martinez was kind of involved in the start and kind of designated, letting us know you guys need to form a committee. You need to remain as a powerful voice. It's one thing to have one person with ideas, but you really need a backing, as we have here, with a lot of people to kind of be heard. So, it's kind of what I.
What a great leader and a great group, right? Congratulations. On behalf of the mayor and city council, congratulations. Nikki. Christina Dorsey-Smith. Kyle Kingston. Donna Lane. Karen Mittendorf. And from Flora Park, Ed Mursachi. And since Flora Park's here and Mr. Mayor is from Flora Park, why don't you come down here with us for this photo, Mr. Mayor? Everybody get close, get close, get close, get close.
Good evening, everyone. If I can have the personnel from the Santa Ana Unified School District come on up here and join me, I appreciate it. Tonight I have the honor of presenting a proclamation. In 1961, Youth Art Month was nationally founded, and the month of March, we are declaring Youth Art Month. Art is education, and I like to call it where the mind meets the heart. One thing about art is that when they are creating something, whether it's dance, whether it's painting, whether it's singing or performance, there's a lot of hard work, a lot of persistence, to have a great result. And so this is what our children learn, and that's why art is important, because it comes in many forms. So I would like to, I guess there was you had a big presentation this weekend in downtown, is that correct? Maybe we can talk to us a little bit about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Robin McNair. I'm the Visual and Performing Arts Program Specialist for Santa Ana Unified School District. And I would like to thank Councilman Villegas, Mayor Polito, and the rest of our council members. And on behalf of Santa Ana Unified School District, I thank you for your support of our students, recognizing that the arts are part of a well-rounded education. As a recent article stated, Santa Ana is the #1 arts place for medium-sized cities in all of America. We have an arts-rich culture, and it's exciting to see it come alive, especially as we prepare students to engage in the creative economy directly and indirectly. Our district has a visual and performing arts strategic plan, which is aligned with the city's arts and culture plan, and tonight is a realization of our plan in action. As Councilman Villegas said, this past weekend we had our Youth Arts Festival kicking off Youth Art Month. Almas Soñadores, Youth Elevating the Arts, and it truly was a phenomenal experience. We had 2,300 students, most of whom experienced their city for the first time, come into the city as performers, exhibitors doing visual, performing, and literary arts. We had all 18 of our intermediate and high schools represented, and with them were their family members, school comrades, teachers, administrators, and so many more. As a result, the students want to come back. The arts are bringing our community together, and we are excited to see the ways our students are seeing their community in a different light, expanding their vision outside the classroom and seeing greater possibilities as they connect with the arts pipeline in Santa Ana. So as a result of the city's extraordinary arts community, we, as a school district, have formed incredible partnerships to deepen student learning and engagement in and through the arts. Thank you to Brian Peterson and Faces of Santa Ana, the Bowers Museum and Bowers Kidseum, and the Teen Arts Council that they have helped us create in the district. Thank you to the Segerstrom Center for the Arts and the Segerstrom family, Turnaround Arts and Nigel Lithgow of So You Think You Can Dance, Relampago, Santa Ana Sites, the Santa Ana Public Schools Foundation, our bid partners in the Business Improvement District, Santa Ana Business Council, Downtown Inc., the Santa Ana Arts Commission, Triple Threat Mentoring, Grand Central Arts Center, the Santa Ana Public Schools Foundation, the Artist Village, Active Learning, and just our whole arts community. And thank you to our 111 art specialists who play an extraordinary role in our students' college and career readiness and life preparation. So again, thank you to the mayor, the city council, Councilman Villegas for taking this opportunity to support the arts, arts education, and fostering a community that brings us together and empowers students as thriving, global, creative, civic-minded citizens that because they have access to high-quality arts education and engaging experiences in this beautiful, wonderful, rich city of Santa Ana. Thank you.
So this is an affirmation of the City of Santa Ana's commitment to youth, art education, and youth programs. And on behalf of the Santa Ana City Council, I do hereby proclaim the month of March as Youth Art Month.
And before you exit, Ms. McNair, I have a special message from our Deputy Superintendent of Santa Ana Unified, Dr. Hagelin, who appreciates your hard work. What a lot of people don't understand is how much time and effort to coordinate a day-long, a whole day program in a variety of different venues. I'm surprised she's standing here today because it took a lot of effort, a lot of planning. And so Dr. Hagelin couldn't be here today because obviously they have their own board meeting today, but he wanted to thank you and congratulate you for your hard work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam City Attorney, do we have anything to report out of closed session, please?
Mayor, we only have one item of reportable action this evening, and this is with regard to a conference of legal counsel in existing litigation. And it's item number 1 on your agenda. The City Council, by a vote of 5-0, with our Mayor Polito absent, approved a settlement of $140,000, and Councilmember Sarmiento was absent as well.
Thank you. With that, I believe for right now I'm going to go straight to the consent calendar and ask Mayor Pro Tem what items she'd like to pull.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 19C, 19E, 19H, 19J, 21. I can't even read my own writing here. I think it's 21, 21A, and 22. No, sorry, I'm going to cross 22A and 25C.
Any other items by council members? Councilmember Solorio.
I know there was a lot on the list. It might have been included, but I didn't hear it. 19D, as in David.
Got it. That's it?
Yes.
Got it. All right. So with that, I would entertain a motion on the balance of the consent calendar.
Mayor, real quick, I'm sorry. 25A may have been already pulled. If not, if we can pull it. And
do you want to pull it?
Pull it, and I'll move the balance.
Move the balance. Is there a second?
Moved.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. 19C, Councilor Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor, on 19C is finally bringing up the comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year June 30th. Just based on my discussions with our acting city manager and some of my concerns, and I know we need to approve this, I'm going to be a no vote, and just wanted to state that for the record. And then moving forward, Mr. Moet, I asked you when we met maybe a month or so ago, and who actually does the comprehensive financial audit? Is it done internally or externally?
Oh, let me call on Francisco Gutierrez, our finance director, to answer that.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Last year, we actually went out and issued a request for proposal to hire a new city auditor, and we hired White Nelson. We do this every 7 years. We try to renew the auditor so we can have fresh eyes, if you will. And Nitin Patel, who is the head of White Nelson, is in the audience if you want to meet him as well.
Fantastic, and I just wanted to just state that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
Move the item.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, 1 no. Motion carries. Mayor Pro Tem is a no. 19D, Councilor Solorio.
Yeah, if we can have the staff person come on up that put this together, or maybe our acting city manager can address this.
Yeah.
So this is to authorize a release of requests for qualifications for firms to provide expedited building inspection services.
Yes.
And I know We did
Yes.
discuss some of this at some of the prior council meetings, and that we want to see developments
Yes.
processed a little bit more
It's-
quickly
yes.
and efficiently. Do we not have in the budget extra positions to do this, that we are seeking to do this essentially
Sure.
through contracted out services, or?
So let me call on our head of planning and building, Mr. Hassan Hagini. We are coming forward in the near future with regards to your second part of the question, regard to staffing in order to sustain expediting the process that you're referring. However, though, Hassan, if you can speak to the request to, I think it's the release, the issuance of the request for qualifications for 19D.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the reason that this item is up, we are actually talking with the city manager about increasing the inspection staff, if at all possible, at the budget time. However, at this point, some developers are asking if we can offer them for a fee an expedited inspection process. And since we do not have the in-house staff at this point to offer that particular service, we're asking you to allow us to send an RFQ and identify qualified private sector companies who we can go to and hire inspectors at the developer's expense to report to us, and then to be dedicated, expedited inspectors for the developers who are willing to pay the additional fee. It's going to be a substantially higher fee for them, in which case they'll have to pay the cost of what we will pay the consultants plus an administration fee to allow them to do that. In the meantime, we're going to be discussing the staffing needs as we come to the future months to see maybe if in the future we could offer that expedited service from in-house, which would actually be to the benefit of the city. But at this point, we need to meet the demand.
Very good. I do have two follow-up questions, but that was very helpful.
Thanks.
Number one is, just to be clear, there are no current vacant positions in your department that would do this type of work?
Correct. And if any vacancies we have, we are focusing on actually meeting the demand on a regular basis, which is typically the next day inspection. We're not meeting next day inspections right now. We're looking at so if we even bring in new additional staff, if there are vacancies, we're still trying to meet our basic day-to-day demand.
And then my second question is, it sounds like this would at the minimum be revenue neutral.
Yes.
And maybe even generate maybe a minimal amount of revenue, but
right.
It's really revenue neutral.
It's revenue neutral.
Okay.
At this point.
The final comment that I would make is, based off our last city council, the mayor did appoint an ad hoc committee on the development of affordable housing in Santa Ana, and we do have some affordable housing projects that financing-wise may on the whole be okay, but they would benefit from expediting processing both on the front end on the planning side, as well as expedited inspection services. So hopefully somehow we'd be able to consider use of one of these firms or through future hired staff, which is my preference, to have them help us develop affordable housing more quickly, because we are in dire need of affordable housing in Santa Ana. Thank you.
Right. And actually, just if I may, it's also our preference to hire in-house staff, because the expedited service is actually a service where we are allowed to make a profit. And because we can also work out within the work program to actually increase revenue from those services. But at this point, we can't do that. We can't offer that until we have the in-house staff to tend to that.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move this item.
Yeah, thanks.
Is there a second? Second. Before you sit down, quick question for you. Assuming we pass this tonight,
yes,
you put out the qualifications, people respond. How long before we can benefit from this?
I think we can probably do it within a month or so, because I think there are a finite number of firms that would be qualified. As soon as we identify them as qualified, we'll have a list. We can pick from any of them. We don't need to sign a contract or anything.
And are we authorizing you through this action to just proceed? Because I'd like to get these folks out there ASAP.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
try to do it before 30 days.
We will do our best. We actually have the list ready, and we have the RFQ ready to go if you authorize us, so we'll get on it tomorrow.
That's a sign with 2 A's and 2 S's, right?
That's right.
Got it, thank you. We have first and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed?
Next item is
Motion
19E.
carries.
Hassan,
Yes.
don't go anywhere. So
Come back.
Please come back. 19E is City of Santa Ana General Plan Housing Element Annual Progress Report.
Yes.
And so I had a question, Hassan, and I'm not sure if you have the numbers or maybe Robert would have those, but where are we at with meeting our housing demand and as it pertains to affordable housing and our RENA numbers?
I will actually open the report. It's in the report in a matrix.
Correct, yes. And I want us to, as we've been talking about affordable housing and other things, I just want us to a lot of times folks, just because it's a recommendation, just really authorized submittal of the general plan housing element. I think it's important as we look forward to these progress reports to know where we're at, right? How do we measure our success? What are our matrix? Not just a report coming to us, or the audience or many folks that are out there in the public that may want to know. They can't read this report because it's extensive. Where are we at with our matrix and meeting the RENA number, and which is our regional needs housing assessment that's mandated by the state of California.
Yes.
To provide affordable housing.
Yes. I just need
a lot
to
of people
open
don't
my
know what
matrix.
RENA is.
Do you have another question? Because he's still looking for that.
Yeah, so as you find that, I will go on to the next item, which is 19I, which is, did I pull 19I?
Yes.
No, I did not pull 19I. I pulled
CEHJ.
19, I'm still trying to get my bearings here, 19E, 19H.
Correct.
And so my question on that is are you ready to go, Hassan?
Yeah, I'm ready for the
Okay,
housing
yeah,
question.
please.
All right, go.
Yes.
So in terms of affordable housing, the RENA allocation for us was 156. And at this point, we have 20, that's for very low, and 136 are remaining to meet our RENA numbers. For low is 122, and we have provided at this point 20, and we will have total remaining at 90. And for moderate is 37, and we have provided 16. But I must say, right now, we have about 12 to 1,300 affordable housing units in the works that they are going through the entitlement process. So we are actually going to meet a lot of our affordable housing needs through the efforts we've made to attract development recently, and 2 of the large developments are going to be affordable housing.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate
you.
that. And move this item forward.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Have the next item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is 19J, and that's just council committees. As you know, last month we decided what committees we're going to be on, but based on my time commitment, 19H.
We actually were talking about 19E and then we jumped to H.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So let's go back to E for a moment, I believe.
No, the 19E is, you're confusing me, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
19E we just finished,
So
which is
that
the
was
general
all right,
housing
so instead of
element.
JH,
So
go to
now we're-
H.
Yes, thank you.
Go.
So 19H is addressing the maintenance enhancing service program. I'm not sure who could actually help me address this issue here.
That's our city manager.
Mr. City Manager, and what this item is really a highlight of a lot of the items that we were going to be supported to maintain and enhance,
Yes.
such as different maintenance programs and
Yes.
stuff that we were doing on 4th Street.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure that all of that is currently being funded, and
It's almost all spent.
It's almost all spent. Do we know what that
Jorge?
percent of that's not spent?
Jorge can answer those questions, but that was the first round of what was the total? 11
$11.25 million.
million of quote-unquote surplus money. 14, 15, I think, fiscal year 14, 15, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And so I think the question, Mayor Pro
It's
Tem-
just what have we, I see what's completed, what's rescheduled, what's on track, but for me, I would like to know what monies have we spent and what then is left over.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez and members of the City Council, to date, we have expenditures of about $5.5 million of the total 11. However, we have issued contracts, a lot of the construction contracts for the parks, the lighting. So we have an additional about $3 million in the queue. And included in there is other projects, the general
the work
plan.
is in the process of being.
So it's in process, but almost every item it should be on track to be completed on
So
time.
about $3 million we will not expend, and so we would have to move that forward for the next fiscal year?
Correct. When the City Council originally approved the program, there was a 3-year allocation. Year one was previous fiscal year. We're currently in the second year, and we anticipated some expenditures to happen in fiscal year 17-18. Part of what we did in the budget last year is we created a separate fund, Fund 50, so that these monies wouldn't be commingled with the general fund 11, Fund 11. So this fund was created. All the monies are available to the departments so that we can go to work with all of these projects. The summary and the photos that are included in here was for the benefit of the public so that they could see their tax dollars at work.
Great, thank you so very much. Now move the item, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have some questions on this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have specific questions on the status of some of these for my enlightenment, as well as just for good public information for our attendees and the folks watching at home. The $400,000 item regarding homeless improvements by CDA, it's on towards the top of the very first page. Can you speak about what we're doing and the status, please?
Sure. Of that program, $100,000 was allocated last year to keep the Armory open. The Armory here in Santa Ana on Warner Avenue, we extended that period being open. Currently, the $300 that's remaining, approximately $300,000, has not yet been allocated. There have been some tentative plans for that, but $300,000 has not yet been allocated at this time, but is available to provide services.
So we've identified an additional $300,000 to address homeless issues.
Correct.
And we haven't, even though we declared it a public health crisis, we haven't figured out what to do with it. Well, at our next Public Safety Committee meeting, which is March 14th, by the way, 5:30, here at City Hall, you're invited. The homelessness issue as it relates to safety is going to be on the agenda and will be on every agenda there afterwards. Hopefully, let's be prepared about how we might use those $300,000 to help the homeless as well as help our residents that are dealing with many issues related to homelessness. And then right underneath that is mention of the branding study. I know we involved a lot of neighborhood associations, a lot of community leaders, a lot of folks via surveys to be involved with that. Can you give us a general snapshot of where we're at with that and what's going to come?
Sure. The city entered into an agreement with North Star that's being managed out of our community development agency, and we can provide a full update to the mayor and council on that, and we can make sure that we get that to you. But they are currently underway and continuing their work. But I would defer to our community development agency on the specifics of where exactly we are in the process.
Yeah, if we can have them come up, because I get a lot of questions about this, especially since I encouraged a lot of folks to fill out that online survey. So if we can get a general update.
Mayor and council, the branding study is currently in progress. There have been 2 surveys conducted. One is conducted for representatives within the city, and one survey was conducted with folks from outside the city to kind of gain their perspective on our city. We do have an update to provide as a follow-up to those surveys. We have conducted interviews as well as the city council members. I think we still have to schedule, one more. We've conducted interviews of our staff as well, of our executive staff. We've conducted focus groups. I believe in April you may see an update coming from North Star. Okay. And we will be working with our city manager in terms of the timing as to when we do the presentation.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Thank you. And then the last item from this list, we have $350,000 set aside for body cameras, and I'm very interested in accelerating when we have our officers wear and use body cameras. Can we have maybe our chief or city manager give us a status report.
Let me call on Chief Rojas.
Great. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, the body-worn cameras, we do have it on the agenda, and we do have a timeline for full implementation, which is expected to be July of this year.
Excellent, excellent. So I think you were working on an RFP.
We've already selected the vendor.
Okay. Very good.
But we'll have all that detail at the public safety meeting on March 14th as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. That's all.
All right, I believe we had a motion and a second. We don't have a second? We do now. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Councilor Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem
My next
Martinez.
item, Madam Clerk, 19J, Council Committee update, and I didn't want the mayor to confuse us here.
Right.
So I'll just ask our clerk. 19J is Council Committee update. At the last Council Committee, we selected on what committees we wanted to sit on, but based on my time commitment as president of SCAG and me being in Los Angeles and traveling a tremendous amount, I am going to have to leave the Legislative Committee and only be able to participate in the Finance, Economic, Technology Committee that's moving forward. And so I just wanted to open it up to my colleagues on this dais that have the opportunity, that there is a vacancy on the Legislative Committee, that I think they meet during noontime or they're flexible to changing the time.
Thank you. So that is more of a,
yes,
of a request, personal request
yes.
for the record.
Yes.
Do we need a motion other than that?
We do. I'll make a motion to move the item forward.
Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. So with that, I believe it's at 21A.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On 21A, I am going to be a no vote, as I've been consistent with the stuff that's happening on Bristol and Warner. But I just wanted to make clear what this item is. And currently, the city is under the works and has been under the works of doing acquisitions of 71 properties, I think it is. And out of that 71 properties, 52 of the 71 have been negotiated, and the relocation of residents is 53 of 96 people that are going to be located. And so I would just ask for our staff, as I've made mention in the past, the issues and why I vote no on these items due to the acquisitions and how we've had to displace not only businesses but residential properties. And we talk about affordable housing and housing affordability, period. We're removing these properties to expand our roads. And these are major arterial roads that essentially, if you look at our plan, our Vision Zero plan, a lot of our accidents are happening on these major arterials that we receive this money from, OCTA, from Mayor Polito and those folks over there. But we also have to just realize what the experience that we face here and what really the narrative is that here we talk about on this dais and out in our community that we want to provide more opportunities for housing, that we want to provide more opportunities for safe places for people to walk and bike. We all know that 30% of our residents don't have access to transport to a vehicle, and so they're walking, they're biking, they're taking public transportation, and many times they have to be in those arterials. And so by us continuing to expand, that creates a lot of other potential hazards and safety hazards. And so I would just ask my colleagues to be cognizant of that we've created these plans. We're talking about housing affordability and affordable housing, but at the same time, we're kind of displacing people and properties by doing these acquisitions to expand our roads. And I understand that we have to be part of a network and we're receiving millions of dollars to do this, but sometimes there are unintended consequences out in our community, and I just wanted to state that for the record. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm a no vote.
All right. I would entertain a motion.
Move the item.
I'll second it, and you want to second it?
No, I don't want to second it, but I do have some.
Go ahead.
Some, I guess maybe a question then a comment. So the Bristol Street plan has been in the works 25, maybe 30 years. I wonder how much has it really changed since then? Because I want to revisit some aspects of it potentially, but if somebody can give me a general description of, are we following every little square inch of what we view our needs are in terms of property as well as the use of the new space being created?
Yes, I have Jason, our project manager, to explain more about the detail of it, but just something to add that the widening also include providing multimodal operation as well. By improving the sidewalks, we make sure that the lanes are narrowed down to slow down the traffic, so it has some benefits in terms of encouraging multimodal operation. Mr. Gabriel would give you additional information on the phasing.
Yes, thank you. When you look at the first phases of Bristol down near Mater Dei, the focus there was on widening the streets, making as wide lanes as possible, grass, Over the years, as we've implemented new phases, we've tried different things from a drought-tolerant perspective. We added bike lanes a few years ago, but now we're looking at protected bike lanes that are actually buffered, so they're separated and protected from the vehicles. And again, the sidewalk improvements, which are even further away from the vehicles. So have we changed the plan over the years? It's still the spirit of what the Bristol corridor was supposed to be, which was to add capacity to the roadway, but we've added more space for the pedestrians and bicyclists over the years as those issues have become greater.
So maybe I'm hearing you say it's about the same amount of asphalt and concrete, just slightly different variations of the use of the...
The lanes going forward are slightly narrower, so there's a little bit less for cars and more for bikes. So we're shifting it that way.
Okay, because the general comment I'd like to make to the staff and my colleagues is this plan was developed long ago, and it's really time to revisit it. I mean, I feel, number one, I don't like the inconsistency of real turf and real plants versus artificial grass. I also feel like in some of these areas, I like the green space, but it's unusable green space. I, for example, rather have kept more homes and businesses there, and where we did have extra area for greenery, if you will, that it should be usable green space where we have small parks or areas near the bus stops where folks can enjoy some downtime, as well as maybe there's too many lanes. I think we just kind of got to revisit it overall. I mean, we got to keep going with improvements throughout the corridor, but some of these ideas are pretty antiquated. And again, all this green space, we need it, but our folks need to move around. They need to touch the green space, not just look at it, zipping by on their car, going 40 to 45 miles an hour. We also are in desperate need of additional residential parking. And so, for example, why not, like we have near Mater Dei, possibly have other areas where we have islands for parking for residents, as well as maybe for food truck islands. I know Mayor Pro Tem Martinez and I have an interest in, having nicer areas for food trucks. So we got to explore new things rather than just feeling like this plan from 30 years ago, it was a vision, and we got to make it a reality. Some things still feel right, and some things don't. So maybe we can have a workshop.
Yes. Let me make a few comments, and I've got everybody wanting to comment on this one. You open it up, Michelle, but look, we got $125 million from OCTA after Measure M1, but the board voted unanimously for $225 million. So part of what I want to remind everybody of is that beyond everything we're looking at right now, there's still a commitment from OCTA for another $100 million. That's a lot of money. In these tight situations, we're looking at budgets. We're not going to come up with $100 million any other way. So part of what I think we ought to do is maybe take a moment, step back, and say, as we finish the final 100, which isn't there in the budget today, by the way, but it's slated to come, how are we going to do that? I will tell you this, if you remember the old Bristol Street, this Bristol Street, no matter what we want to say, is a heck of a lot better. It flows better. I get personally comments all the time from members in the community saying, boy, even if you don't go out there and climb the trees or run around the grass, as you're going down, around between, say, McFadden and Nettinger, for example, you start to see all these sycamore trees mature and just bring a little bit of peace and greenery in what was previously just a very urban, concrete type of space. I think that's very, very positive. The other thing I think we ought to not lose track of is that as we're trying to look at long term, I think we should do a lot of things long term. Yes. We've got, after the OC streetcar begins, very likely the next leg could be on Bristol Street going south towards the airport. And that would be very positive for the south part of town all the way into the airport. Those drawings have already been drawn up. Yes. Years ago we spent $35 million. We didn't put the EIR out on the street for review, but it's sitting there. So if we think that that 6 lanes are too many, we should also be thinking that can accommodate a streetcar by design. So I know there's more comment, Mayor Pro Tem, and then our city manager, and then Councilman Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to state for the record that I think the development committee a year or so ago, maybe David could chime in on that, but we had asked for the parcels on Bristol that were vacant and how can we turn those into green spaces. And so we had a conversation. It just never came back to us. So I'm in agreement with Councilmember Solorio that we're able to bring that plan back. And I know you all have put something together for us, maybe bringing that back to one of the committees so we could have a broader discussion and then possibly bringing it up here for a workshop. But what I will just say that as well, as we expand the capacity of these roads, is OCTA just providing the capital to do the initial investment in the infrastructure, or are they giving us money to maintain the actual capital and expansion of those roads?
Through the Measure M2 Fair Share program, that provides money for maintaining roads over time. So there is a funding source from OCTA for that.
And it's sustainable.
Yeah.
How much longer is Measure M? But when does that expire?
30 years.
So after 30 years, then we have another 25, but after that 25, then that is dependent upon the city. And so again, I just ask us, or another measure, to be cognizant of that, that when we continue to do that we always have a source of revenue to maintain, our roads. And I just would end lastly with this, Mayor, that as we look at re-looking at Bristol, taking a very close look at placemaking and, creating that space within Bristol to accommodate the residents in that area. And number two, I think, we also have talked about community gardens on and so forth with the green space that we have available. I know from the next couple of phases of Bristol, we don't have those linear parks anymore. I think something happened to do with some of the funds, something like that. I'm not sure if you could expand on that, but we're not doing that in the last, I think, 2 phases of Bristol, or the last phase, regarding the linear parks.
Yeah. That would be contingent on the availability of remaining funds once we complete the projects. If we complete all the phases that are currently in development and there's remaining funds available, then we can implement the linear parks. But that's yet to be determined.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I know we have 2 speakers. I think as a wise city manager, we should let the council member go first.
Absolutely.
Councilor Benavides.
Good call, Mr. Acting City Manager. I did want to clarify that there is within the Bristol Street zoning or some of the properties that are going to be remnant along the corridor there, green space that has been identified. Is that correct?
Correct. The remnant properties that we have, there's some residential, some commercial, as well as open space.
Okay. That's what I recall. I just wanted to make sure to clarify. And I think there's no doubt that Bristol today looks very different than it did 20, 30 years ago when this plan was conceived, and it continues to improve. And some of what you expressed is that as time has gone past, we've updated with some of our needs multimodal is an example, drought tolerant is an example. So the community is definitely benefiting from these advances and improvements, and it has been one of the things that we have received this commitment of over a couple $100 million, because Bristol is a very impacted street, transit, because it's a connector street between. It's not just an internal city street, but we receive the impact of traffic of folks going from Costa Mesa, from the 405 freeway to the 22, and other cities. So for that reason, it's been designed to. This project has been one to be able to alleviate some of that traffic. However, there have been other benefits that we have been incurring, and I think others that we will continue to see. And definitely want to encourage you to continue, as staff, to continue to look at some of the suggestions with regard to making some of these spaces more active. There's also members of the community that have brought forward different ideas to activate. There's at some point, I think we'll be discussing a community land trust that was discussed, or that has, and part of their discussion, some concepts and ideas that would make these remnant parcels public benefit parcels to activate and return uses to the community. So overall, I definitely would. I think it's clear that we have received a lot of benefit, and just want to encourage staff to again continue to look at ways that we can continue to benefit the community going forward.
Now our city manager, our patient city manager.
Well, I just finished 2 months, and I have been actually focusing on understanding our Bristol project for many years, and I agree that there's a design, there's an interest in understanding, there's consistency in design, and there's a lot of the comments that I just heard right now makes me feel that I'm on track with regards to, Fred doesn't know this, but it's going to be a topic of an EMT retreat, because it's very important to really understand when you design, to understand the communities around and the needs, the issues of that were mentioned. You don't want to have a bad design quilt. You want to make sure that the quilt is well designed, and not in a certain part of town it looks different than another part of town. There needs to be consistency, especially with what was made reference to what's at stake for future resources. I think it's very important to make sure that we protect that. Whatever the vision that council ends up creating, I think it's very important for staff to keep in mind. But I concur with regards to it's time to really think about consistency. I think that's what I'm hearing, and making sure that we have a real logical and fair approach for both the homeowner and the business people that live around the Bristol. And Bristol is very, very important to the entire community, in the entire region. So it is going to be one of those budget retreat topics we're going to go deep and trying to be very, very ready to answer questions from council.
All right, so maybe enough discussion for now. This is not the study session. Go ahead, Councilor Solorio. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is, or it's a mini retreat. Just a couple more items that I was reminded about. We have a lot of remnant parcels there on Bristol, but also in other parts of the city. I know we used to traditionally every 5 years or so do an RFP for available land that the city has, just so we can get it developed. I know I get a lot of inquiries about what we're doing with the empty land, or it's growing weeds, or why don't we have other uses for it. And in particular, we have some outstanding uses that we should particularly reach out to them to see if they can't grow. But I heard maybe decisions were made that won't allow it. For example, Santa Ana College has that beautiful digital media center on Bristol. We should, if we haven't already, allow them the option through an RFP or some other process of adding to that if they'd like. And then similarly, kitty corner from Modern Day, that Gallo Giro Plaza is an outstanding plaza. They're packed. I'd like to see if we couldn't allow them again through some process to see if they may want to expand, so we can really highlight and increase what we have and make a nice quilt, also with the uses that we have alongside as well. So let's think, or maybe just separate, if you could report to the council on when we're going to do another citywide RFP where we sell land, or in some cases we may have nonprofits that may want to have us consider community land trust concepts, or joint use projects, whatever it may be. But, you know, my old boss at OCTA used to say, you know, in government, we also need a sense of urgency. You know, we're not like the private sector where, you know, it's more motivated based on profit or other things. So in government, we can get relaxed. And, you know, we've had some of these parcels, they've been sitting vacant for years. And so we really need to have a sense of urgency on this as well. Thank you.
I think Councilor Benavides now has another comment. Go ahead.
Just to address both of those parcels, they're actually currently under contract. If I'm not mistaken, that Spyglass one
That's
at
correct.
Wilshire and Bristol, and the other
That's
one.
a Spyglass property,
Right.
yes.
So that's going through the final process, and I believe the other one is we're going to actually be able to open up a park at McFadden and Standard by way of a swap with
That's
the property owner.
1406 South Bristol.
Right.
Yes.
So both of those, we're on it.
And now I think Mayor Pro Tem has another comment.
No, they have to, I'm done. You just
All right,
need a
I'm
motion in a
kidding.
second, I'm a no.
I just got a text from Councilor Tinajero. He wants to come in and comment. So, no, I'm kidding. So with that, do we have a motion and a second? We do?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
No,
Aye.
no, Martinez.
One no. A loud but civil no.
Yeah. Thank
So
you,
that
Mr.
next
The
item?
last item, Mr. Mayor, and if we could please have Fred just come up here, and that is the agreement to provide bicycle and pedestrian safety education services. And I had the opportunity to speak to our acting city manager and our public works director, and just wanted to state for the record, Fred, that we will be going back to those, we moving forward with this agreement to make sure that we make pedestrian safety a number one priority over bicycling. I certainly agree that we should make an emphasis on bicycles. So it's something that our community wants. But looking at our Vision Zero plan that we call SAMHSA, if you look at the statistics, it indicates that we have more pedestrian fatalities over bicycle fatalities. So I would just wanting to make sure and state this for the record that you're going to move in that direction and having that conversation with them.
Yes, Mr.
Great, thank you.
Works Director. I'm going to be recused myself from this item, but there was actually 25A was one that I had pulled, so I thought I'd get a chance.
So why don't you recuse?
So recuse
But
myself.
if you recuse, we only have 3 members.
Oh, there's Jose.
Oh, Jose can vote from the
Yeah,
sidelines.
move the item forward.
Second by Solorio on the sidelines. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Now you can leave, Jose, and now we go on to 25A.
And just something that actually, whenever we have, and we often have, a lot of good things to be able to celebrate and highlight. This is one that briefly I want to bring attention to this. The utility cabinet pilot art project, something that we worked on some time back, a couple years back. We've gone through phase 1, phase 2. As you've been able to see, different utility cabinets throughout the city that have been beautified. We've had different artists that have contributed to bringing a little bit of their skill and expression of the city to life, and have beautified the city. This next phase, in phase 3, one of the exciting things is we just had Councilman Villegas earlier recognize Art Month, Youth Art Month, with the school district present, and we will have some of our schools, our elementary schools, that will be participating in designing and painting some of the new, this phase 3 of the utility cabinets throughout the city. So just another positive thing. And this one, I believe we're doing 6. Yes, we're doing 6 on this one. So with that, just want to bring that attention to that and move the item.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed. As we move on, I just want to point out we're doing 6 and it's costing $1.2 million. Or am I on the wrong item?
1.2 thousand.
Got it. I said, wait a minute. Something's not making sense here. We got to get in that business. All right. That's much better. Now, item 55A. I would entertain a motion.
Move the item.
Those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed, motion carries. And now, on 75A, I'm going to turn 55B.
Move the item.
I'll second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
No, 75A, yeah.
They only had 75A.
Yeah, he's right.
It went from there to there.
He's right, yeah.
Anyways, just on my, it didn't show 55B.
Yeah,
It went from 55A to 75A. So with that, I'm going to turn 75A over to Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep. Can we still take comment? Yes. Oh. Oh, we do not have a quorum, so we cannot move forward. So we're just going to do a pause, a recess. Oh, no, here comes Councilman Tinajero, so we can begin. So at this time, we...
Before we go there, can I get something?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Tinajero.
Madam Clerk, I did not get to make a statement on why I removed myself. It's because that item was dealt with 3 elementary schools, and I work for the Santa Unified School District, so I had to recuse myself.
Thank you. Now that we have a quorum, thank you, Councilman Tinajero. At the last, actually 2 meetings ago, we actually continued the public hearing to regulate food vending vehicles. So I am going to open up, and we have this public hearing, and we have 4 comments. And so I'm going to start with the first comment is from Felipe Guerrero, followed by Beatrice Martel. If we could have Felipe Guerrero, is Felipe here? Followed by Beatrice Martel.
Good evening, Council. I am President of the Santa Anita Neighborhood Association, and on behalf of the Neighborhood Association, we would like this new ordinance to pass. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. The next person is Beatrice Martel. Is Beatrice Martel here? If not, okay.
Hi, my name is Beatriz Martel, and I'm here to say that I'm not happy with the food trucks. I'm a owner property, and not happy about it. I already lost my privacy, and it's very dangerous for me and my family because the truck is next to the corner. When I go out, I cannot go. I cannot see. So it's not even 200 feet. It's less than 100. So I've been asking the city. I've been asking the parking enforcement, and then deny my requests. You're welcome.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, these are specific people wanting to speak on this issue. I'll go ahead and take the cards. Yes, I will take the card. I want to make sure we get everybody's input. Next, we could have Arturo Cervantes, followed by Irma Macias. Arturo Cervantes, followed by Irma Macias.
Hi there. I'm a business owner here in Santa Ana. My family and I have been in business for over 25 years, and I support the ordinance to regulate the food trucks. The way it operates now, they pretty much can do as they please. They park in neighborhoods adjacent to existing restaurants and stay there from, for example, 8 in the morning to 10 p.m. We call the city to ask them to leave, but they don't. They basically attack the restaurants and encroach in the business and hijack our customers. Why? How do they do this? Because they don't pay rent. We pay $4,000 or $5,000 in rent. We can't sell our product as low as they can. Our initial cost to open a business is much higher than theirs is. Theirs is probably $20,000, $30,000, I just assume. And they undercut us by selling the product much cheaper, and they're looking for the customer that's going to walk out of his house and buy their product. So, these trucks are a nuisance. They're they create a dangerous environment for the citizens of Santa Ana. Why is this? As she just said earlier, she's a homeowner. There are strangers in her sidewalk. You wouldn't want strangers in your sidewalk eating business. There are drunk individuals that show up late at night. They throw trash, they urinate in public. And, Santa Ana is a big city. I'm sure that if I purchased a truck and I parked it in Santa Ana Hills, I would be removed in 20 minutes. I don't think you would enforce the law that is enforced now. So for those reasons, and I have many more, I don't know how much time I have here.
You can please wrap up.
Okay. For those reasons, I would like for this ordinance to pass. I believe in fair competition. This is not fair competition for a restaurant. Fair competition would be amongst themselves in a park, as Councilman Solorio suggested, a certain area for lunch trucks to do business and to compete against themselves, to earn their customers, and create a good, safe environment for people to go there, and specifically for the
Great.
trucks.
Thank you very much. Irma Macias, followed by Richard Garcia.
Good evening, Irma Macias. I'm here with the issue with the vendor trucks. We did a walk last Tuesday, and as a result, we still have and see all the violations. People don't comply. We have the same comments of the previous individuals where they feel harassed, they feel they are neglected by the city because the issues are there. The crime is rising. We have neighborhoods where they have the gangs are controlling the trucks. They are selling nothing but unhealthy products. So we saw some trucks selling plastic guns, 3-4 different kinds, where these kids are just going out by themselves and getting the stuff. Crime is up. We have had so many, about 6-7 gangs killing each other right now, especially in those neighborhoods. So I need you to understand that this is a safety and health issue that needs to be taken care of. They don't want them in front of their homes. They are telling you they don't want them in front of their homes because this is a business and they should be in commercial areas, not in residentials, because of the safety and the health issues they are bringing to our communities. The crime is really high, and we need to, I want you to be aware that this is your problem. And I want to welcome the representatives from those neighborhoods to walk with me and see what I see and feel what these individuals, because many don't want to come forward for safety. So I really want to emphasize that even though they try to make arrangements, make it better and less, but we don't need 30 trucks in one neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Irma. Next, Richard Garcia. Richard Garcia, followed by Teresa. Teresa did not put a last name. Richard Garcia, followed by Teresa.
Good evening, Council. I'm a native of Santa Ana. Been an established community leader for approximately 20 years. And the issue here is just what Irma said. I'm here representing the majority of the businesses and also especially the restaurants. We've had meetings in the past regarding the issues on the food trucks with the County Health Department, also with the Santa Police Department, and also with city officials. They're trying hard, and I thank Alvaro Nunez for putting this in the agenda, and also everybody else that joined in. So please, we would like to pass this ordinance due to the issue for the quality of life for the businesses and the people that live in the city of Santa Ana. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Teresa. She did not provide a last name. Teresa, followed by Albert Hernandez. Then we have Ricardo, and then we have Teresa, followed by Albert Hernandez.
Do you have a translator now? Interpreter? Do you want to speak this? No, I was just. Okay.
Albert Hernandez, until we get our translator to come down.
Hi, thanks first to everyone. Thanks, Ms. Martinez. My name is Albert Hernandez. I'm one of the owners of the food trucks here in Santa Ana. I've been working and doing this business for 10 years. So when we started this business, I started with a small truck, and we started with the regulations that were made by then. So, and we're thinking by changing and putting new regulations to people that we're already working and have been established in this business for so long, It's going to affect our impact. It's going to create a big impact in our service. It's going to create an impact in our families because I especially employ 10 people, and the investment that I have in this truck is close to $100,000. So we are doing the things right, and I really want to ask for all of you to just take a minute and think that we cannot take the trucks out of Santa Ana because they are part of our community. The trucks are being here for so long. So this is part of our community. It's part of our, Santa Ana is well known for having good food trucks. So I believe that by just allowing the good trucks to make good business, so it's not going to affect anybody. It's going to help the city in so many ways. So we just have a meeting this morning with our attorney, and he advised us to ask you to take the meeting and not make a decision today until we are prepared. We want to work with you guys. We are open to negotiate the regulations. We do really want to help and have a better environment and better relationship with our neighbors. So we're doing the things right. It's not all of us who may be doing something wrong. So let's make the police take care of the people who's not doing the right thing, and let's have the health department take care of that situation as well. So I strongly
Great, if you could please wrap up. Thank you very
much.
much.
We're just going to ask you guys for see you can help us and see we can have a next meeting.
Teresa.
Oh.
Buenas tardes. Pues yo soy una de dueñas de troca, ¿verdad? Y me afectaría mucho si las quitan, ¿verdad? Porque ese es un soporte para mi familia. Y pues cada año nosotros pagamos los permisos, ¿verdad? Y le toman la inspección, ¿verdad?
We can't hear. If you guys could please be respectful, let her speak. Thank you.
Yo pienso que a muchos familiares de los trocos le afecta esto, ¿verdad? Yo ese día que ellos pasaron caminando, en sí me intimidé porque como está la situación ahorita, ¿verdad? Uno pues tiene temor, ¿verdad? Esa es mi preocupación hasta este momento.
Gracias.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm a truck owner, and this would affect me if the trucks are removed. This is the way I support my family. We pay the permits every year. We get our trucks inspected every year. Many families would be affected if you remove the trucks. When they were walking the neighborhood, I felt intimidated, with the situation that's going around nowadays. So this is the concern I bring to you.
Thank you. Ricardo Cardenas. And I can't pronounce your name, so you're up next. And he knows who I'm talking about. He's the last speaker. I can never pronounce his name. But do you need translation?
I'm going to try in English. And my name is Ricardo Cardenas, and I'm coming from in my neighborhood. Lately, there's a truck over there, and it's been bringing a lot of so I can say sometimes mental illness persons and crime. They broke into my truck. Like you were saying, to walk at night, Michelle, sometimes I was walking the other day. Some guys, with the knife, just looking at me, and people coming out of, close to the food truck over there. And the reason I moved to that neighborhood is because it was before in the other neighborhood too. As soon as I went to the store, they were approaching me to sell drugs and green cards and fake Social Security cards. And I don't have nothing against these people that's trying to make a living. I seen a lot of good food trucks, and I seen them. I work at the convention center in Anaheim, and they bring them over, and they have a really successful business. But the way they regulate them, and and if you can have a place for them to gather, like, I don't know, but but not in my neighborhood, because this is a park, and so you have all kinds of people, and they have a marijuana dispensary right next to it, and they come for the tacos, you know, and you know, the munchies, right? And so it's really unsafe for me to walk to the store at night. Now I can't walk anymore at 8:30 at night. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. Tweets a la Poche.
Hi, Nawi Huitzilopochtli, and I just want to say, a lot of these people that are speaking before me, no disrespect, but you guys sound like the Marco Gutierrez. Marco Gutierrez is the guy that supports Donald Trump, that was scaring or trying to scare white America, that if you let Mexicanos in, they're going to have taco trucks in every corner. Now, I don't mind having taco trucks in every corner or food places in every corner, because as a kid, when I lived in Costa Mesa, my dad and my uncle, they used to play soccer on what is now called Cesar Chavez Park, and there was food vendors everywhere. I used to love it, by the shrimp cocktails, the ice creams, and the tacos. I mean, this is like part of our culture, and I don't see like these people, like they come from Mexico. All of a sudden, they think they're gabachos. Like, these trucks are getting in my neighborhood, and I feel scared. And it brings up the crime. What crime? A paletero brings crime. A lot of times, the paleteros get robbed by people. They're not the problem. They're the victims of people assaulting them. So I support the food truck vendors. I support the ice cream man. And I don't see how these people, they come here and like, ay, no quiero esto porque me hiciste mi propiedad. Gracias.
Our final speaker is Maritza Bustamante. Our final speaker, Maritza Bustamante.
Hello, my name is Maritza Bustamante, and I came here from the Youth Empowerment Network, and I came to talk to you about how my aunt has a food truck, and she stopped selling because of fear that she would get in trouble with the police or the city. And so yeah, and it would like be affecting my family and other people, because sometimes like people come from school, and that's like the only meal they get from a food truck, because people don't eat at school sometimes. Like, the school food isn't like what we are used to eating. And yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Maritza. Appreciate it. So what we have before us here is a recommendation to adopt a resolution for the City Council to move forward with this ordinance. I'm going to open it up because I'm not sure if staff has a presentation. Do you all have a presentation?
We do.
If you all could come up here and give your presentation, and then open it up to my colleagues for discussion and moving in the next direction. Yes?
Can I just make one comment before we get started with the formal presentation? I just want to make sure that everyone fully understands that this ordinance does not ban any type of food vending truck. So for those speakers who think that this ordinance is actually banning them, prohibiting them in our city, that is just false. You might have read that in an article or a newspaper that didn't clearly read the ordinance, but this ordinance does not ban food trucks. So I want to make sure that as we have the conversation tonight, everybody understands that. We understood when we looked at these regulations that these are the type of trucks in our community that are used by our constituents and that are very much welcomed in the community. And so that, just want to make sure that's clear, especially for the business owner who thinks that we're banning them. We are not doing that.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. And now I will pass it on to Hassan Hagani, who is our Planning Director, and Alvaro Nunez, who is our Code Enforcement Supervisor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Nunez, the last time, gave a complete presentation of the components of the proposed ordinance. However, there have been some conversations since then, and he has prepared some answers of the frequently asked questions. If you would like, Mr. Nunez can go over those or make himself available to you to answer questions questions right now. It's at your discretion.
Yes, please do the presentation, because I know you all put a lot of work into this, and I know when we brought this issue up a month ago, we could have kind of forgotten about what this regulation is, and I do want to thank our attorney for articulating that what we're doing here today is not banning any food truck or any produce truck, and just want to clear that for the record. And so again, I think it's important for us to get the background. And when we actually started this, Alvaro, this is has not just happened overnight. This is about a 2.5-year conversation of Mr. Nunez going out into the community and the city council providing that direction for Supervisor Nunez to go out into the community to figure out what are some best practices, and more importantly, how can we move forward in making sure that we have regulations that really protect the safety and health of our community as a whole. So, Alvaro?
Again, just a brief presentation regarding the bullet points. I know we did the thorough presentation a month ago. Part of the key aspect, and as the city attorney already indicated, we're not banning any type of mobile vending here in the city. Some of the key points that we have presented, again, is no different than we had in the past. They're able to get a business license within the city of Santa Ana. They're required to have it in a conspicuous, obvious display case. We're prohibiting additional lighting, signage, and amplified sound, which is part of the state code anyway, and also part of the municipal code that we had in place. Some of the key prohibitions were prohibiting vending within 500 feet of a school, park, or community center or playground. 500 feet.
500
feet.
From
school, playground, community center, and park.
Okay. So 500 feet is approximately what? How many yards? A block?
About half a block.
About half a block, okay.
Approximately.
Depending on the block.
Depending on the block, exactly.
It's a quick walk.
It's a quick block. And the key point is, part of the California Vehicle Code does allow us to make some certain restrictions, as long as we have the necessary findings. And that was part of your packet presentation at last month's aspects. A key also point prohibition, we're prohibiting vending within 100 feet of an intersection. Again, California Vehicle Code allows us to make that restriction. Again, if we have findings, and we presented that as part of the presentation a month ago. We prohibit items in the public right-of-way, which is a typical aspect within Santa Ana Municipal Code, not necessarily in the previous vending ordinance, but as part of the municipal code, and that applies to all items in commercial, residential, and industrial aspects, not a key aspect. We're prohibiting vending within a 35 miles per hour posted arterial streets, and again, part of the vehicle code allows us to do that if we have the necessary findings, and we have that as part of the presentation at the first city council item. The two new key things that we are presenting as part of the city ordinance would be the commissary restriction, which is already part of the state code. The California Food and Retail Code requires vehicles to be stored in a commissary. We're just saying that's part of the municipal code. The other item we're adding is the sanitation bathroom requirement. Within, if you're parked in a space for more than an hour, you have to have access to a bathroom for your employees for within 200 feet. And again, that's part of the California Food and Retail Code.
Yeah, real quick. So if you have a taco truck it's in a location and they are there for an hour, that's state law that
Yes.
they have to have a restroom facility. Access. So what is defined as access?
So, for example, let's say you have a bathroom that's inspected by county health, right? A restaurant, maybe like let's say Superior, as an example, a store. Their bathroom is inspected by the county health department. So if they fall into an access, they provide an access to the actual mobile truck, and they have to present a letter that qualifies as access, unless they have some type of civil agreement.
So a grocery store that has a certified restroom can write a letter to the state and say...
No. They write a letter to the mobile vending,
and
the vendor, and says, you have access to my bathroom. Your employees have access to my bathroom.
Okay. So right now we have them 500 feet away from parks, you said?
Yes,
So it's about a football field and a half, right?
yes.
Okay. And so I just want to make it clear that that's a state law.
No.
No, state law that they have to have a restroom.
The California Retail Code, yes, requires they have access to a bathroom.
Okay, so access if they stay at one place for an hour.
Right. They have to have an access within 200 feet of where they're at.
Okay, so that's why I'm making this extremely clear, because I want to make sure that people understand that that's a state law, not a city law.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's, if you notice, those are the two items that we more or less mirrored from the county health. And you can go into the county health webpage and just print out that section, and we can provide also that section as part of the requirement. Now, there's a difference, Councilmember. You mentioned 500 feet. That's not, the requirement is 200 feet, not 500.
I was talking about how far, I'm sorry, I confused you. I was talking about how far you'd be from parks, because I was thinking, what if there is a restroom at a park? But
Well,
again,
actually, a public place would allow that. That's part of the code.
okay. But right now, the code says that they have to be 500 feet.
No.
From the park.
Right. That's our presentation. Okay. Right. And that's not the California Body Retail Code. That's the California Vehicle Code.
Got it.
Two different points.
Great, thank you, Alvaro. So again, what's before us is recommendation action to place an ordinance on first reading and authorize for public of title. So I wanted to open up here to my colleagues if they have any questions in regards to what Mr. Nunez just presented, or any other further comments, and before we take a motion and a second to move this item forward. Comment? I would go first, but I'm running the meeting, so kind of, if you all are okay with that. Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I just didn't want to be rude as the chair of the meeting. Typically, you don't you don't provide comment until the rest of your colleagues provide their comment, but they're allowing me to speak. So thank you, Alvaro. I have met with our planning director this afternoon, and I provided a set of questions, and so he provided them to you. And so instead of me reading them off to you and giving them to you, why don't you just read off the questions and then provide an answer? I would like to put those out on the record, and so if you can please do that. I'm not sure if he has a list of, I think he has a list of those, and you can respond to them.
Yes.
And I think one of the questions was also for our city attorney, so when it comes to that point, she can then answer. Thank you, Alvaro.
Okay, first question. When did we get the federal injunction imposed? That was in, I believe, in 2006. Do we have a state injunction? We do not have a state injunction. We were students in Superior Court, and there were 3 items that were injunctions that we were not able to enforce. Third question. What was the terms that has been, the trucks have been able to do now, or that since the injunction, right?
Yeah, what regulations since our injunction have we had in place, and as it pertains to what we currently have, what we're planning to approve today?
So prior to the this proposal, the mobile vending vehicles were able to get a business license, and they were required to adhere to all zoning requirements and public right-of-way, public vehicle code regulations, period.
Great, thank you.
And so are there permits for metered spaces? The answer is yes. They can work with the finance department, and they can rent one for a day or what have you, which is technically no different than, for example, vending on private property, where they can get a land use certificate on a temporary basis. How do we evaluate the effectiveness of the ordinance? Well, for us, is to regulate our complaints, monitor our complaints, make sure that when we respond, that we identify the difference between the violations of the ordinance versus the perceived violations of the ordinance. And we can do that by just tracking the type of complaints and our enforcement efforts. How much have we spent in enforcement? We can regulate that also. We can monitor and track our enforcement efforts at that point. Time effectiveness, the number of staff, the resources, and the type of violations when we respond to them. how much have we generated in funds? Again, we can track that based on fines and work with the finance department if that's necessary. Is there a way to track how much money they make? Well, we can work with the finance department. You know, they have sales tax. There's a certain item that they pay, and it would be difficult in many ways, but we can work with the finance department trying to monitor as far as the money that they generate. How many permitted vending businesses do we have in the city? We currently have approximately over 245 business license accounts, which means that they may have multiple vehicles, but that's the business license accounts we have, 246, I believe.
246 of food produce trucks
combined
and food trucks.
Yes.
246.
The catering trucks, hot vending, and then produce.
Correct. Thank you.
And what kind of business license did they get? I mean, what kind of license did they get? Vendor business license with the business license department with finance. And can we restrict what they sell, like certain junk food, you know, candy? I would say no, but that goes to the city attorney.
To the city attorney, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd have to do some additional research on this, but in just my brief understanding is I know at one time the city of New York attempted to actually ban the sale of certain types of sodas. They lost that attempt to ban. I do know of some cities that have required, I think the city of San Francisco requires warning labels on certain soda or sugary products. So I'm not aware of any city that has successfully banned the sale, and I'd have to do additional research to give you a definitive answer. But my inclination is to tell you that I don't think such a ban would be upheld.
And thank you. And those were all my questions that I asked our planning director. And hoping that Alvaro can ask those, because when we started this, this is not something that we have been discussing a year or two ago. This is something that has been really being discussed for the past 10, 12 plus years because of the phenomena. But I also just want to state for the fact to my colleagues that mobile food vending is linked with place. It is linked with our Latino culture here in Santa Ana. So we cannot go away from that main premise that the culture that we have here is connected to what the service that they are providing to the residents in those neighborhoods. And some folks will say, well, why ain't they in Floral Park? As in comparison to that, because they probably would get hushed away by the police, on and so forth. The reality is this, is that if they were over there, a food produce truck, they probably wouldn't generate that many sales, right? Because those folks over there in that neighborhood actually go to a market and a store to buy their goods. In the Latino community, it's part of the fabric. It's part of the experience that we've had in this community for a very long time. With that being said, I understand the culture identity, but it does not mean that this city council doesn't have a responsibility to regulate health and safety codes. We are not trying to say that we want to ban food trucks. We're not saying that we want to ban produce trucks, but we have 246 of them in Santa Ana in 27 square miles, which I would say that within those 27 square miles, we're probably in about 8 to 10 of certain high density neighborhoods, and Alvaro could probably allude to what that really number is, because they're highly concentrated. There's not just one food produce truck. Sometimes you have 4 to 6 in one block. And so when we're talking about the safety of the residents in that neighborhood, when we're talking about the health codes, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're able to make all businesses, whether you're a brick and mortar or whether you're a food produce truck or a taco or those taco trucks that you all are speaking of, everyone has to have regulations. Am I trying to increase regulations to make sure that they're not successful? In my personal opinion, I personally am not trying to do that, and I'm certain that my colleagues up here are not trying to do that as well. And so there's been a lot of discussion out in our community over these past 2 years. This issue wasn't just brought up 3-4 months ago. The city council directed Alvaro to go out and speak to the nonprofit organizations, to our neighborhood associations, and to the food produce and hot trucks to figure out what are some of the issues that are occurring within our neighborhoods, within our city streets. You know, they brought this information back to the city council, and yes, it certainly was delayed for some time. This item probably should have came back to us a year ago. Unfortunately, it was just delayed over a year, and now we're here with this city council wanting to make sure that we're able to regulate from a public health and safety. And these are not regulations that are from the city. These are state laws that we need to make sure that these businesses can comply with. They must comply with, and we have a responsibility as a city council to do that. You know, I asked a question to our city attorney, and I mentioned it at the last meeting. I wanted to figure out ways of how do we enhance the experience with food and place and really the public space of our community. I believe we have a great opportunity to do that beyond just being in neighborhoods, and we're talking about possibly these islands where you can bring food trucks and allowing nonprofit organizations to fundraise, or having, you know, a Friday off of, you know, being able to create, you know, an opportunity for food trucks to all come together. It happens in Los Angeles. And yes, I made mention of other states and cities across the United States, because Santa Ana is not the first city that has been battling with this issue. It is a phenomena of the past 15 years that multiple cities across the United States have been trying to identify how can we continue to make sure that we're able to utilize and really look at the cultural identity and why we have this particular use in our city. But number two, how can we capitalize? They're an economic driver. And so I will not dispute that they're providing jobs, that they are providing income to the city, and that is a positive thing for the city of Santa Ana. But the next step for us is to, one, we have to do more assessments. So how can we encourage this use, but at the same time realizing, and I'm going to ask you, Alvaro, if you have the statistic, in comparison to Anaheim, how many food trucks and produce trucks do they have in comparison to the city of Santa Ana?
No, I don't have that, to be quite honest. I can tell you that the city of Santa Ana has 6 commissaries to store vehicles. Anaheim has 3.
So that right there in itself should tell you all that the majority of the food produce trucks and other trucks are predominantly here in the city of Santa Ana, because the second largest city in Orange County is Anaheim, and they have 3 commissaries. Santa Ana has 6. And so I don't have all the direct figures and what does that mean. And I would just ask you, Alvaro, if you can please provide that to us, because I think we need to look holistically in what service that we're providing, because I think a lot of folks have been providing information, you know, about, you know, this city council wanting to ban, or this city council wanting to add additional regulations that would take these folks out of business. That's far from the truth. But we also have a responsibility as we regulate any brick and mortar. They all have regulations as well. We're trying to do the same thing for this industry, and I believe it's the responsible thing to do. So I'll go ahead and open the rest to my colleagues. Yes, Councilman Benavides.
Just, Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember, just one added point. Just to be clear, Mayor Pro Tem and council members, as added information, once we've completed our proposal, we not only met with neighborhood leaders and representatives of COMLIC, we actually met with the Mobile Vendor Association that brought the federal suit and provided a copy of the proposed ordinance and the findings. So we actually had many interactions, and once we did final our proposal, we actually met with them privately with them.
Great. I'll make a motion, and we have a second. We need a second for continued discussion.
For purpose of discussion, I'll go ahead and
Great.
second.
Go, Councilman Benavides.
I want to thank everybody for their comments. I think we had relevant comments on both sides of the issue here tonight. It's been an issue that we've been discussing for some time. I think one of the main things, and I appreciate City Attorney for highlighting the fact that we're not looking to ban the produce trucks or the taco trucks. They are part of not only the fabric of our community and the culture here, but it's something that maybe Latino community, maybe immigrant community has sort of led the way, and it's kind of a fad now everywhere. They might call them gourmet food trucks. We've been calling them taco trucks for forever, but they do provide something that's that our community benefits from. I think the main thing the important thing to highlight here is that it's health and safety issues that we're looking to address, from proximity to street corners. There are larger vehicles. We did hear earlier this evening, one of the speakers, it does make it difficult for somebody to cross the street safely, or for somebody to make a turn when there's a larger vehicle that's impeding view. Having the trucks go to commissary where they can be cleaned, be connected to refrigeration that they might need for, some of them provide milk and other dairy products that for which it would be helpful to be plugged in. And the other is providing access to a bathroom. I think that's a reasonable request, I think, for any employee actually would be operating and working one of these trucks. So the other points that were brought up with regard to the competition, I think that with the brick and mortar restaurants, well, it's a valid one. I think some of the comments that were made by some of my colleagues earlier, again, other cities are embracing what particularly the food trucks have to offer, and creating a space and actually a destination, a food food hall on wheels, if you will. Actually, Costa Mesa is doing that. I think they do it on weekends, and so it's something that the city of Santa Ana we should definitely. We have some of the best are arguably here. We want to embrace that and have that be more intentionally part of our culture, and celebrate, embrace that, create a space for the trucks, and also address some of these concerns that some of the restaurants have as well. So, given that, again, I think the importance, we're not trying to ban or attack anybody. We're just trying to make sure that health and safety issues are addressed, and with that, I think it's a fair, balanced approach that we're looking at here tonight.
Thank you, Councilman Benavides. And I totally forgot to close the public session, so I'm closing that now, and we'll continue with comment. Yes, Jose Solorio.
Thank you. I agree with what Councilmember Benavides just mentioned. We're trying to really balance a lot of interests. A lot of it is what are appropriate health and safety codes for our children and our residents, and part of that starts just with going by county and state law. So much of what's in the proposal is that. We're also trying to balance the interests of the business owners, the workers there, because we do feel for them. We are compassionate. That's why the proposal tonight is not a ban. I also like to say the proposal is really not to reduce the number of trucks either. It really may change where some can be, but the purpose is not to reduce the number. And then the residents, I feel for some of the residents. I'll tell you that of the emails that we've gotten, most of them tend to be in support of this resolution, and some of the most animated emails are the ones that say, hey, sure, folks love to come to Santa Ana to go to a food truck, but if you have 2 food trucks or produce trucks in front of your home 24/7, and if you have children that work late or go to college and they get home late and they can't find a place to park, and they're young ladies or young teens, they gotta walk blocks and blocks away, you feel for them as residents, homeowners, what might be. So we're trying to balance a lot of interests. Also consumers, we gotta keep an eye and ear out for consumers. And I admit I have eaten at food trucks before. I'll tell you that my favorite one is the one by Stater Brothers near Godinez High School. They have excellent cheese quesadillas with very nice corn tortillas, so that's an admission there. Also, I do want to thank some neighborhood leaders that have been working on this for a long time. In particular, you heard speak Irma Macias, who has been a longtime resident of Santa Ana. She lives there near, Lowell and Pio Pico Elementary School. There are literally some blocks there, and we just toured that area mid last week. There are 4 produce trucks in a block. And it really had been a while since I had visited the produce trucks. And, there's a difference between the produce trucks and the food trucks. I'll tell you that the food trucks, they offer nutrition. There's a variety of carbs, meats, proteins, a variety of food. There is real nutritional value to that. Admire it. On the produce truck, and every neighborhood may be different, but I got to tell you, I want to really work with my council colleagues and groups like Latino Health Access. I mentioned this to them last week. I visited the produce trucks near those 2 elementary schools, and 99% literally of all the products at those trucks weren't tomatoes, weren't lettuce, wasn't milk, wasn't cheese. It was about 30 varieties of chips, about 50 varieties of candies, literally 5 different varieties of guns, of toy guns, including sawed-off shotguns. So that in reality is what is being sold, and I think we owe it to our community to work in a cooperative way with the residents and the owners of those produce trucks to mix it up. Maybe they also ought to sell, toothpaste or soap or other vegetables or half and half, but we should not condone the feeding of sugar products solely to our kids. We do them a great disservice. Also, quite frankly, many folks feel this ordinance doesn't go far enough. But because this city does embrace these type of trucks to a certain extent, this is a very balanced approach. Also, at a meeting that I was at Latino Health Access, and I was speaking to some parents, and I was mentioning the kinds of things that I saw being sold nearby, and I said there are also, allegations that some of these trucks sell drugs. And this little girl was almost in tears saying, you know what, it's not a rumor, they do sell drugs. And for that, I got to tell you, if there are those kinds of concerns about specific trucks, we want to know, because we don't want them to be the role models for our food trucks. Parking is also an ongoing issue. Some neighborhoods feel like they take parking that is needed for residents, so we got to care about that. But I would tell you that on the whole, because it is a dignified job, and particularly food trucks are very much needed and appreciated in our community, I do feel that the past penalty measure that was in our food truck ordinance and that is still in this draft, which is a criminal misdemeanor penalty, I think that's excessive. I think, like other code enforcement traditions, they ought to just be fines and maybe staggered, but there's no reason why we should criminalize workers or owners of these businesses with a criminal misdemeanor for selling maybe an inch or two too close to an intersection. So, I've met with staff. I already asked them to do this research. The only motion I would have, if this is the right time for the maker and the second, but I have a couple more comments, is that I do want to see the misdemeanor provision taken out in its entirety from this ordinance. Also, a lot of the safety ones are key from a pedestrian standpoint. It's very sad, but in the city, even though we have a lot of gang-related shootings and other gun-related shootings, we most years and most months have more deaths in Santa Ana because of pedestrian fatalities and because of safety issues, speed, lack of visibility, and this is also meant to protect that. Finally, let me say that there's some follow-up, even if this does pass after these hearings and sessions. I do want to follow up with a lot of the business owners. I know many of them want to work with us in good faith. If this does get passed, we could still make modifications down the road. I also want to explore the idea of food truck islands, either permanently for temporary events. And I want us to do more outreach, including with the vending community and residents on what ought to be sold, particularly for the produce trucks. We can't force them to sell what we want, but we can definitely have those conversations. Finally, as I hinted at, with the support of the maker of the motion in a second, I'd like to have direct staff to remove the misdemeanor criminal element out of the ordinance so that only financial fines would be a part
I
of it.
support that friendly amendment, and I'm not sure if you all, as you're saying, Jose, that you would want to make sure to continue to speak to the business community and neighbors, because we may make some modifications.
Down the road.
Right. Maybe have this as a pilot for 1 year and bring this back to the city council.
I think just parallel to the implementation of this, assuming it passed,
Okay.
that we have those dialogues, and we probably should be meeting with them, maybe like 2 or 3 times a year, just to see how it's
Okay.
going and make modifications along the way.
Fantastic. So the only friendly amendment that we would be asking is removing the misdemeanor.
Correct.
I accept that.
I want to decriminalize food truck vending in Santa Ana.
Agreed. Councilman Tinajero?
One of the things, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez. I'm going to ask you a few questions in just a minute, but I used to be, well, I guess I'm still kind of a history teacher, so I got to go back in time. So I don't know if many of you are aware, some of you were in elementary school at the time, and you've developed into fine young citizens. But back in the day, back in around 2001, 2002, 2003, somewhere around that area, what had happened was that members of the community here in Santa Ana became very irritated with mobile vending trucks. And in fact, there was a racial element in there, and so what happened was folks were coming up and saying, hey, we need to get these trucks out of here, and the same type of rhetoric was being said that they're selling drugs and they're selling this, bad food and all this stuff. And so what ended up happening was, I remember Council Member Claudia Alvarez was on board, and at one point she looked at the council and said, you guys are going way too far, because what had happened was they had said that mobile trucks had to move, I believe, was it every 30 minutes or something like that?
90 minutes.
Every 90 minutes they had to completely move, right? So they overreached. There were other things too. They overreached. So then they go to court. And when they go to court, one of the arguments was that this was a racial issue. Well, they go to court, and the judge is sitting there. One half of the courtroom is all Latinos. The other half was all Caucasian. And guess what side each side was on? So the judge ruled in favor of the vending trucks because he viewed this as potentially a racist issue. So that's one of the reasons why we haven't been able to do much, because it's taken this long to have conversations, to talk it over, and to talk about what is an appropriate regulation. So in the past, they overreached. That's why we have the situation. I think we also have to be careful too, as vending truck owners. The vending truck owners have to also understand that you can't overreach either on the other side, because then you're going to have a clash. And so I just want to say this. I have a little bit of a difference of opinion with some of my colleagues, but it's not adversarial, it's just a difference of opinion. I have a situation where I think about privilege. Stater Brothers has privilege. Let me tell you what Stater Brothers can do. Stater Brothers can sell Dunkin' Donuts, they can sell candy bars, they can sell Fritos, they can sell beer, they can sell any gosh darn thing they want, but we will never say, oh, whoa. No, shame on you. We need to regulate you. Okay? And so that's where I draw the line there, where we have to be careful, because we have to give the same, let the market dictate what it is that is there. Do we want our kids to eat healthier food? Of course we do. But obesity also has another area too, is you have apartment complexes that say no playing in our courtyard, or no rolling of a ball in our courtyard. And here you have families that are sharing one apartment, sometimes 3 families sharing one apartment. The kids have nowhere to play. We don't have enough park space, and apartment complex people are saying you can't even play outside. So why aren't we regulating them? Do you understand where I'm coming from? We have to be fair. We have to be fair. So let's be practical. I don't like when I hear, oh, they're selling drugs out of a vending truck. Okay, that's like saying if one Latino goes and robs a store, all Latinos are going to rob stores. Okay? So let's go case by case. If there happens to be a mobile truck that happens to be selling drugs, then go and arrest them and handle it. But in the meantime, let's not decrease the business of mobile vending truck individuals who work very hard to make a living for their families. Let's not stigmatize them. Guys, listen, people come to our city to eat at those vending trucks. When I go to Boston, I want a nice lobster roll. And you know I can eat, Alvaro. You know I can eat. When I go to Boston, I'm going to have a nice lobster roll. When I go to Chicago, I'm going to have some of that thick pan pizza. When they come to Santa Ana, they want to check out our vending trucks. I can't tell you how many people say, hey, man, take me to the best taco stand. I say, there's too many, but I'll take you to a couple. And we go. So let's just put it in perspective. Let's not demonize our vending truck people. The other thing is I do agree that this ordinance, what it's going to do is put us in compliance with the state. So let me give you an example. And this is where I talk about the other side. And this is where vending trucks, you got to be sensitive to this because you have other residents who, if we are sensitive, they're going to be on your side too. And that is, you have a truck that parks in front of a house, okay? Right now, you can park in front of that house and you could be there all day, right? That creates agitation. We get phone calls and so forth. But with this ordinance, you have to move every hour, right? Or else you have to have a little porta potty or something that's not a porta potty, but something that's
Right.
that the community, that the state approves.
Right.
Access to a restroom. So let's just say this, Alvaro. I'm gonna ask you this question: if a person parks right outside, let's pretend they could park outside. They park outside. They've been there for an hour. Now it's an hour, and they look at their watch and say, "Oh, we have to move a little bit." How far do they have to move? A foot, 2 feet, a yard, a football field. I mean, where are we at?
Good question.
Legally. Just give me a legal answer.
Yeah. Good question. And I don't know if the city attorney would like to interject, but I'll say it this way. To the extent that we're practical, you want to say it? I'll say it.
I think the answer is this, that I think Alvaro is a little bit having a hesitation. They can move just a few yards away to the next space. That's
Okay,
accurate.
so let me
That's
tell
the
you what's
answer
good
you're-
about that. Let me tell you what's good about that. So you can still sell in that vicinity. The difference is this. Let me tell you the nice thing about this is you move, let's say, 10 feet. Now the person whose house you were in front of is at least happy that you've moved 10 feet. Okay? So someone else says, well, geez, the truck is here. Either I'm hungry and I'm going to go buy some tacos, or don't worry, they're going to have to move in about an hour, and they're probably going to move another 10 feet. In other words, the vending truck is moving, and it's not stopped in one place. I think that's a good thing. I think it's something that's fair and equitable for everyone. So I personally, I know you guys are looking at me like, oh, Sal, you're messing us up. No, I'm keeping it real. Okay? So here's the deal. I think we need to continue to look at how we can help make the vending truck successful. At the same time, try to keep the best quality of life that we possibly can. I believe some of the business owners, when they said, a gentleman who came up was making good arguments, and then he lost me when he started talking about drugs and all that stuff in the vending trucks. But at the beginning, I thought he was making some good arguments. He says, look, I pay for a business license, and I pay for rent for this particular building. It's much more expensive. And then I have a vending truck that parks in front of my business and is able to take some of my customers away. And so I agree with them, and I understand that. I think this is going to help with that. At the same time, I think the market also dictates, right? If I like a taco and they sell it at Taqueria de Anda and it's stationary, I'm going to go to Taqueria de Anda. But if that taco truck over there sells something that's equally as good or just a little better, I'm going to go wherever my taste buds take me. So, but I think this is a good start. And I wanted to let the public know why it's taken so long. But I do agree with Councilmember Solorio. We're not stopping vending trucks. We're not stopping them. We're just trying to meet the needs of the state of California as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilman Tinajero. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more comment? If not, I'll entertain, call for the vote.
The only
All those
question.
do you have a question? Okay, yes, Councilman Benavides.
Mayor Pro Tem, for the city attorney, I'm looking at section 36705, the penalty of violation. what's being proposed is would we strike that first paragraph and allow for the rest of the, basically I just want to make sure we have clarity, that you have clarity, that we have clarity as to how we're going to proceed with regard to penalty.
You know, oftentimes when a council member approaches us before a council meeting and raises questions or has ideas or thoughts as to how they'd like to amend an ordinance, we will give some time and thought to how we might do that, because this is a first reading. So we are prepared to do that. The municipal code in the very first chapter says that every violation of the code on its face is can be cited as an infraction or a misdemeanor unless otherwise stated. So we have prepared some draft language. If you are going to accept that amendment to the staff recommendation, we are prepared to add the appropriate language, and then it'll come back to you at the second reading. So you actually see the language at the second reading.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Councilman
Yeah, no,
Benavides? Okay.
just so we're clear on what we're doing, rather than have it be ambiguous and then.
Yeah, no, it's clear, and we've actually drafted some language that if you approve it tonight, we will include it in the record.
Okay.
Great. If no more question, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? No, motion carries. Thank you. Ask our mayor to please come back in. So we have some comments for 85A. We're going to start with speakers as our mayor comes from the back. Hero Cortez, followed by Alexis Tadero.
Good evening, members of the council. Just quickly on this item, I'm here with OCIYU, and I think that efforts to enact police oversight are very important, and I think for us, as our position is that these efforts are very valued and very important. Our efforts should be undertaken. However, we urge that the council undertake these efforts in conjunction with the Santa Ana Sanctuary Ordinance, which calls for the creation of a commission. This weekend, actually, I was at a conference in Philadelphia centered around sanctuary. And we did this conference in conjunction with the Black Youth Project, which is very focused on police accountability, on issues such as these. And one of the things that stood out to me and that really, really hit me is that any discussions of police oversight should be done in conjunction with efforts to provide sanctuary. I think in this era of Donald Trump, who has built his presidency on attacking both immigrants, on attacking black people, on attacking transgender people, we need to think and broaden our conception of what sanctuary is. And so I think if the sanctuary ordinance is already in place, and if the sanctuary ordinance calls for the creation of a commission, we should tie police oversight to it and not separate the issues, but do them both together, because at the end of the day, both police oversight and protection of undocumented immigrants go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexis, followed by Benjamin Vasquez.
So I'm here as a resident. I live in Ward 1, and I'm also part of Residents Orange County. And I've also been part of a group of many people across the county that has worked on immigration enforcement for many years here in the city and in the county. As one of the people that was involved in actually writing the sanctuary law that was unanimously voted by this council, from the beginning, our intention was that immigration and police matters shouldn't be separate, they're one of the same. So when we talked about and mentioned a sanctuary task force to do the full implementation of the sanctuary law, we envision a police review board, not a citizen review board, a police review board. The reason why I'm mentioning the word citizen is because by calling it citizen from the get-go, you're excluding most of the majority population of Santa Ana from ever being part of a task force or a commission that holds police accountable.
I would encourage Council Martinez to meet with us, those from the community who are immigrants, those in the community who are residents, those in the community who are part of undocumented households, to sit down with us and do a democratic process where we ourselves write the policy and write the law. We know the best of what we need, and we actually don't fully trust a lot of people in the city because they're pro-law enforcement. There's no denying that there's two council members who were elected with the help of the police association. Like, if Council Benavides needs to step out of a meeting around grant funding because he's the executive director of a nonprofit, why is it that folks that were supported by law enforcement need to step out whenever we have conversations of overseeing law enforcement, because that's a conflict of interest? It should be. It really should be a conflict of interest. It's not an irony that 2 years ago, when this council, when we condemned the sheriff's department for violating the Trust Act, violating the rights of a Santana resident, Samuel Sixtos, it is no surprise to me that 2 years later, we have an employee of the sheriff's department in council. I really don't believe, honestly, that if you're supported by law enforcement and you talk about law enforcement issues, you should not be part of the conversation.
Please, followed by David Carvajal, followed by Roberto Herrera.
Hello, Council. I appreciate the spirit of the agenda item, but we do need a resident-led resolution where the voices of residents are heard, and we will work in conjunction with city staff. We have a saying as activists in Santa Ana, says, mandar obedeciendo, which means you lead by listening. And it doesn't mean lead by getting paid. It doesn't mean you pay to play. It means you hear the voices of the people and not of your special interest groups that pay for your campaigns. So we urge you to make a more democratic resolution where the voices of the residents are heard. Thank you.
David Carvajal, followed by Roberto Herrera, followed by Jonathan Hernandez.
Just to kind of, or good evening, everyone. Just to kind of reiterate what Benjamin was saying, the Sanctuary City Ordinance was written by community members. It was written by documented people. It was written by people that live in mixed household immigration statuses. It was written by community, right? It was written by people who know firsthand the violence of immigration enforcement, and we need to keep it that way. We need to make sure that it's overseen by community. It's overseen by people who envisioned and wrote the Sanctuary City Ordinance, and we need to move forward and keep it that way. So thank you.
Thank you, Roberto Herrera, Jamanta Hernandez, followed by Alberto Castillo.
Hello, Council. Although I do support police accountability, I believe this power rests within the Sanctuary City Ordinance. What we are calling for is a task force to have the authority to conduct independent investigations on any police matters that is at the intersections of police-involved shootings, immigration enforcement, biased policing, and crimes committed out of poverty. We need to engage and give local migrant residents the power to shape laws that will impact their lives forever. Local immigrants and Santana residents who are DACA recipients, legal permanent residents, and citizens who live inside undocumented-led households are the best and most equipped to formulate policy and laws in regards to immigration enforcement and policing issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamanta Hernandez, Albert Castillo, and Iglia Tesglin.
Hello, Council. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Mayor Pulido. My name is Jonathan Hernandez. I'm a Santa Ana resident from Ward 5. And I have been fighting for youth for the last 10 years. I'm 24 years old, and I'm the executive director of Santana Unidos. I represent over 160 youth in the Santa Ana Unified School District. Of that 160, over 40 of my families are undocumented families that are recipients of DACA as well. I am here today to demand that you allow the ICE contract to expire, as this is a contract that criminalizes the families that I fight for, and that many of you guys as educators and as representatives of our city goes completely against what we stand for. I hope that you guys reject any proposal to negotiate with ICE for the extension of the immigration detention for profit contracts. In addition to that, when the election happened, the Santa Ana city leaders stepped up to declare Santa Ana a sanctuary city, as we all know. That was the right thing for the city to do. Now, at the end of the ICE contract in mid-May, that is an appropriate and necessary step to ensure that this is a sanctuary city that lives up to its promise. Okay? To have continued collaboration with ICE in any way defeats the meaning of this resolution and does not serve to increase the safety and the well-being of our residents and of the transgender people in our community as well, who will be rounded up to fill these ICE beds. So I hope that you guys put special interests aside as you guys fight for our community and our residents and lead with your hearts and not your pockets. Thank you.
Albert, followed by Iglia Teslin, and then Robert Teslin.
I'd like to thank Michelle Martinez for putting this in the agenda. I think it was long due. We know there's been a lot of abuse by police officers through the years, a lot of what I call murders through the police department, a lot of abuses, and I think this would help also the chief of police to deal with the issues of cleaning up the corrupt police, not all police, but the ones that are corrupt. So thank you for that. And I also want to say that this item should be tabled until we have a full council. We know that there are 3 that are supported by the Police Association and are not going to be in favor of this. So can you please table this till next City Council meeting? Thank you.
Iglia, followed by Robert.
Good evening, Mayor Pulido and respectful Santa Ana City Council members. My name is Ilya Tseglin. Regarding item 85A, to establish an independent review, citizen review board to review police force, incident procedures and policies, and make recommendation to the City Council, I fully support to establish citizen review. We people should oversight and review the police in order to keep them accountable. It should be clear to police that we are taxpayers. We pay them to protect us, not administration, not public offices. We need protection. For some reason, the police court and public offices have the agenda to abuse public and always support the public offices. They can lie, they can do anything but be on their side, where they can be on our side. Thank you.
Iglia, by the way, I know you say pulida, and right now you did it, and right now you're saying police, it's police.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you. Robert.
Hello, Honorable Mayor Pulido and Santa Ana City Council. This is Robert Teglin, brother of Nate Teglin. I'm in support of this ordinance with regard to oversighting police officers, and hopefully that they would do their duties as far as not only not use excessive force, but also hopefully investigate incidences of alleged abuse, such as the case of my brother and so forth, so that citizens could have more trust in the police. So, of course, this has to also be applied to the court and the judges and so forth, but it would be helpful if police would sort of document some of the abuses more often and be more forthcoming to help in the matters of abuse and so forth, so that citizens would not only be not to have fear of being abused by police, but moreover they would have assurance that police would would be more forthcoming to help protect abuse. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. That's our last speaker, and now I'll bring it back to Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And one of the reasons I brought this up, I'm a big believer in checks and balances, and
Go ahead.
And, this issue, has been on top of my mind for many years for the following reasons: that when we're in closed session, there are times where a lot of lawsuits are coming before us on officer-involved shootings or police force, and what that's costing the city of Santa Ana. And we sometimes tend not to talk about this. The city attorney will discuss after we get out of closed session that we have entered an agreement or we have settled certain lawsuits. I could just tell you, just between last year and this year alone, and it's not over, we're between $5 and $6 million in paying out. If we were to look at the past 10 years of what this has cost us, it has been a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars. It is important for this mayor and city council to understand that as we look at our financial and our operating budget, how can we do whatever we can to make sure that we have efficiencies? And we need to look back at what we're dealing with these officer-involved incidents, and it's important for us to look at the best practices. I know the community is talking about it's within the sanctuary city and a task force. I think a month ago I asked when was this task force going to get started. It has yet to get started, and I'm not sure when you all are moving forward with that. But for me, I would like to request our city attorney to work with our chief of police to look at the best practices across this country in regards to citizens review versus independent review boards. You just don't ask a city council to have, a resident-led. It's important for us to have facts before us and understanding what's happening across this country to make good informed decisions. The second part is, again, to review the impacts and the costs of what it's costing us for these police officer incidents. And then third, what is the current city practices and policies and procedures as we're dealing with police force? I want to thank our chief of police. He certainly shared that information with me. In years past, I would ask the city council if they've reviewed and seen the reports, and I know our chief of police is wrapping that up. But as I look at what Los Angeles is doing, and I shared the report, which is kind of similar to what we're doing, but it's important for us, and I would urge the Public Safety Committee to review that report and really dissect it and see how can we make improvements, because when you're looking at the cost every single year on these lawsuits and us settling, imagine what we would be able to do with those tens of millions of dollars that we're settling. And I would just ask our city attorney that if we were to do some data analysis and look, I've been on this city council for 10 years, and so I always like that number. For the past 10 years, what has been the cost to the city of Santa Ana? And I think when my colleagues see that, you all will understand why I brought this item before us and why it's important for us to review it on those merits. I get it that the community has other frustrations, but before we actually try to implement or have conversations about creating an independent review or citizens review board, this city council needs to have the information and actually needs to look at the checks and balances and the processes that we have to help understand why it's costing us this much money year in and year out, and what we could possibly do with those funds. I once upon a time had addressed to our POA president as we going up to negotiations, not this one, but even the last one, I said, look, if we were able to reduce our workers' compensation, we're able to reduce, these lawsuits, how much more money we would be able to reinvest back into the dollars that you're continuing wanting to negotiate with this mayor and city council to give dollars to you all back. We would be able to look at that cost it's costing us every single year. And again, I say in the millions. I don't know what the specific number is. I did inquire just for the past year and a half, and we're almost at $6 million. And so I would just urge my colleagues to direct our city attorney, and I would like to make a motion to direct our city attorney, again, to provide us best practices of an independent review versus a citizens review board. Second, to review what the costs have been for the past 10 years on the police incident for the city of Santa Ana, and to also provide us a breakdown and matrix of the city current policies and procedures that we currently have as it pertains to police force within our Santa Ana Police Department. Thank you.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, ask a question. Go ahead.
So the difference between what do you see as the difference between an independent review board versus a citizens review board?
Again, I don't really have a specific, and that's why I'm asking our city attorney to go and look at the best practices of what an independent and citizens review. So an independent, you could hire a third-party firm to conduct those investigations, or you could act, a citizens review board is that you would appoint a commission to do that. I'm wanting to look at what the best practices are across the country, using an independent, the city council hiring a third party to work with the city council as it pertains to the police force incidents, or do we want to bring on a citizens review of commissioners? I understand what the definitions are for those two. I'm wanting to get best practices from across this country, what's worked, what hasn't worked, because both of these these styles have been controversial in any city. I actually had the opportunity to talk to my good friend and colleague Paul Lopez in Denver, and how they're doing their citizens review committee and their policies that I've actually shared with our city manager and police chief as well.
Would you be opposed to tabling this discussion until we have a full council?
Most certainly, I'm willing to continue the item, but I certainly would like to hear comment from the rest of my council. What I'm asking for again is checks and balances and the amount of money that's being spent here. That we need to really pay close attention to that, because as we move forward, what the impacts are on our future budgets, that we need to be cognizant, and how can we streamline and really move forward with a process that's effective and efficient.
Thank you. We have more comment. Councilor Villegas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Primarily, I believe that a lot of these types of review boards are for agencies that are in trouble. Like in Los Angeles, they've had this type of thing. But when you talk about finances, I mean, I hear you say a lot about money. I believe, in my opinion, is a lot of it has to do with leadership, and a lot of it has to do with training in the department. So you might want to look at that first. We do have a lot of layers. I was just thinking about it. I was writing some things earlier. They have to, if you have a use of force that's questionable, whether it's, somebody makes a complaint, automatically goes to the internal affairs. Then you have the DA's office. You also have the grand jury, state and federal. You have the Department of Justice. You have the courts. And if you were to this is just another layer of looking at it. I mean, I think I could see the Public Safety Committee looking at the use of force policies that we have. Every agency has them. It's ABC for us. So there's just a lot of things that come to mind. Why would we want that? What is the goal? And you're saying the financial portion of it. Me, I don't want people to get hurt, because police work can be a little messy. I mean, just you have to place yourself. Please don't interrupt. Nobody interrupted you, so let me speak. Thank you. Be respectful, please. Thank you. So the thing is, I think Chief Darrell Gates, the late Chief Darrell Gates, said it best in his book. Unfortunately, we have to recruit from the human race. And people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So, please. So I don't like to Monday night quarterback anyone when they're doing something. Something looks bad, I wait for the investigation to take place, because I don't like to rush to judgment. I don't think anybody wants that. You want a fair shot of see what happens. So another thing, if you were to create an independent review board, some people are asking, well, we want subpoena power. Well, subpoena power for what? And what are you going to do when you find with it? And do you know what you're looking for? And how do you qualify someone to serve on a board like that? Do they know the law? Do they know case law? Do they know policy? Do they have law enforcement experience? And another thing, the officers aren't compelled to speak to anyone. You want to have the power to investigate, but they're not compelled to speak to you, especially when you have other things pending. So I kind of think that maybe we can discuss this more. I'm always open for that, but we might want to try moving it over to the safety committee to see where we stand on that, because there's definitely a lot. I mean, do we want people from Santa Ana? Do you want people from the outside of the city of Santa Ana? This could go a number of ways. So that is my thoughts on it. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
May I just comment?
Go ahead.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I've taken all that into consideration, and that's why I'm asking the city attorney to do research. If you look at comparable cities to our size and looking at the lawsuits and settlements, I think, and I've done my research, and I'm not going to spell that out because I think you should hear it from a viable and professional source. You're going to see that there is some issues as pertaining to our processes, our checks and balances here, and we have a responsibility as a mayor and council to review that and moving forward to make the best decisions possible. When we just negate and say, well, we don't want to have that, we already have a process in place, it's always important to go back and making sure that the process actually works. Again, this city has functioned and is ran without accountability. We need accountability. We need to manage our expectations. And this mayor and council has a responsibility to do that. I'm not asking, for the moon and the stars. All I'm asking for is for make sure that there's transparency, that there's accountability, and for us to go look at these best practices to bring back and making sure that when we look at what we're dealing with, what our costs are to comparable cities, I think we will be having a different kind of conversation because at the end of the day, based on the research that I've done, I think that we have fallen short, and we have paid out a significant amount of money. And again, it's in the millions of dollars. Just this year and a half alone, we're at, again, $6 million, and the year hasn't even ended where we will end up at.
Additional thought or comment, Councilor Benavides?
Thank you, Mayor. You know what, Watson, I want to thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing this item up. It's not something that is uncommon. Clearly, there will be plenty of examples that city attorney and staff will be able to take a look at and learn from. This is not something that we're trying to, create out of the blue, or there are examples out there. And the benefit of an independent or community review board, review panel, or commission, I think clearly, just even in the comments that we heard up here, I think Councilman Villegas just made the case for that. You want it to be independent. You don't want to have. We have a lot of fine officers serving within the Santa Ana Police Department, but as was mentioned, we also have individuals that are not necessarily exceptional, and that whether it's that don't necessarily operate with the that give a bad name basically to a lot of the fine officers that we have out there. But there's also the example where we don't want the law enforcement policing themselves. I mean, clearly the examples that were just mentioned, it's more than law enforcement or some of the actions being a little messy. When you're talking about millions of dollars being paid out because of wrongful actions, and lives being lost, it's a lot more than a little messy. We want to make sure to have levels of accountability, again, to ensure that the name and the work of the fine law enforcement officers within the Santa Ana Police are protected and not tainted by some of those that are not performing their duties as they should. There is within the ordinance that we did pass, there is already a clause, a commitment that the city has made to create or establish a commission or task force to be able to, made up of community members, to advise the city council. I'm looking at the ordinance as I'm reading from it at the moment. It says that the city shall provide appropriate training and establish a commission, task force, or similar body composed of community members to advise the city council on these and all policies related to the ordinance. This is the ordinance, again, related to how the city and specifically the police department will address issues with the community specifically around issues related to our immigrant community. But I do think so that it's not duplicative. I would recommend that we look at having this community review be joined, so that we are able to address the items that Mayor Pro Tem brings up, but then that we're also able to address the review and the implementation of the policies that we've approved, so that, again, there's one entity, we don't have duplicative services, and one body that's able to advise council. So I would be supportive of us exploring this and having something come back, again, keeping in mind what we have, the ordinance that we have already approved as well. But I'm also open to the idea of continuing this and bringing it back in a couple weeks, that we're able to have the full council here to deliberate and make a decision.
I have a question. So
Are
we talking about, well, one thing I understand is having a review board for the sanctuary city thing. And another thing is having a board looking at the incidents that happen on the PD, right? So we're talking actually about two different boards.
Correct.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Can you ask that question one more
I would
time,
ask the
Adam?
city attorney. I don't know the specifics of essentially what the sanctuary city said in regards to the task force. I think that's what he's asking.
We're talking about two different things, right? One of them is to make sure that they comply with what the rules that we have for the sanctuary city. But another thing is that if we have a use of force incident, then that's not going to be covered under this the review board for that. We're actually talking about a different board.
Well,
talking about two different things, right? I just wanted to
Mayor Pro
clarify
Tem brought up one. Some of the speakers brought up some,
gave me confusion.
That brought up a good point. So what I'm recommending is that we look at, rather than having two duplicative bodies or review commissions, task forces, or boards, whichever term we choose to use or approach, that we look at the potential of having there be one community review board that would encompass.
But you would run into trouble having. I'm sorry. You would run into trouble having both into one, because one of them is meant for one thing and the other one is meant for something else. And you need, in my opinion, you need experts to look at the use of force. Use of force is an expertise.
Can I make?
That's a whole different ballgame when somebody examines that.
All right, one at a time. If you're done, let me go to council.
I think one of the things that we need to look at is I would like to continue the item, and maybe we can have a more thorough discussion at that time. What I do believe that there is an elephant in the room, and that is $6 million in excessive force litigation against us. A lot of you all don't know this, but this council, there was an officer who was dismissed, and it went to our planning or our personnel board, and they overturned that decision. And so then the council voted to not uphold that decision, to stick with the original decision. It went to the courts, and today the judge reinstated that officer back into our force. Okay, so this is, in my opinion, this is an example of a breakdown in the system. And so the question is, could we have prevented that? And so we have to look at those. We can't just dismiss them. Here you have an officer who's shot a woman that was unarmed and cost us $1 million, who was going after someone in a pursuit, decided to get in his car and attempt to pin him against the wall with his car. And fortunately, the guy moved out of the way. He got clipped, and it cost us $100,000. So we cannot just say, well, the system is always working. I think that we always have to find a way to make the system work better. And so I'm not sure what direction we're going to go, but I believe that there is, that's Exhibit A. The $6 million is Exhibit A. The dead body is Exhibit B. And I think we have to take a look at that and see where we're going to go as a society, as a community, when it comes to how we want the police services to operate in our city. That's all that Councilmember Martinez is asking for. It's nothing. We have wonderful officers that do a great job. And unfortunately, just like in teaching, you always have a few, I'm just going to call them bad apples, that mess it up for the rest of the people that are working hard. And that's the same thing but wouldn't we want that? I mean, in my profession, yeah, I want to get rid of the bad teachers because then it elevates our profession. I think the same should go for our police department. We should want to get rid of the bad apples because it elevates and the credibility of our police department. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Councilmember Martinez bringing that up, but I think we should save that discussion when we have a full council here.
Any more comment for tonight, Councilor Solorio?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few comments. First, I know every now and then it gets mentioned that only 2 or 3 of us have been supported by the Santa Ana Police Officers Association. And just for the record, everybody up here, including the person that's not here, has been at some point endorsed by the Police Officers Association for the City Council or for another office. So, in fairness, everybody's up here has been endorsed.
But they never spent $400,000.
Well, sometimes they spend more. I think in prior years they've spent comparable amounts for you, Councilmember Tinajero, and others. So everybody has received some support, and we can't differentiate whether it was $2 or $3. The point is, just for the record, everybody up here has received that support, and I'm proud of that support. I've also been supported by the Firefighters Association, the Chamber, numerous labor groups, and the people of Santa Ana. So I'm proud of the support that I received. In terms of this item, I think there's merit in discussing these type of ideas, but I think there are other ideas that we should consider too, and maybe also the Public Safety Committee that we've now established may be a better forum for it. Because, for example, if there is a City of Santa Ana policy on the use of force, I haven't seen it. I don't know that we've shared it with others, and I think we ought to do that. I would also tell you that something that I'm very interested in terms of open data, including making crime statistics available the way the City of Anaheim does, as one example. In the City of Anaheim, they, as part of their crime stats section with their open data portal, they have year-by-year depictions of cases of too much force by the police. And I think things like those are important because you can't manage what you don't measure. And so, for example, that's something that we should be tracking as well. Then a couple of council members mentioned training as well. That's very important. I know I recently ran into the district attorney's office, the person that does training in this area. I told her it's an area of interest to us, and it's something that if we already aren't doing it on a regular basis with our police officers, we should. And then finally, as I've mentioned before, something that would be very helpful overall in terms of knowing what's really going on in the field is body cameras being worn by all police officers. And as some folks in the audience have shared with me, let's start by putting those cameras on our gang unit officers, our community-oriented policing officers, our patrol officers, so we know what's going on. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this area. Also, too, I believe at the end of the day, in terms of accountability and holding our police officers and all departments accountable, the buck stops with us on the city council. So I don't also just want to, give away this very important responsibility to somebody else, especially if we ourselves haven't looked at it. Because again, there's a lot of work to be done, and I would prefer that we discuss these things in further detail in our Public Safety Committee.
Let me just ask up questions, and then we'll probably consider continuance or whatever. But one would be of the city attorney, and that is that these of any of these incidents, have any of them been found not to be justified or found to be justified? Which might it be? Or have any of them been filed by the DA's office? From my experience in many of these cases, we end up not going to the court all the way fighting. Sometimes we settle, and you tell us it's what you recommend. So have any of them, what is your answer to that question?
I can't go back the full 10 years, but the 5 years during my tenure, I have not and I don't recall, and I don't think we've had any excessive force claims that have been reviewed. Usually these are fatal shooting incidents that have been reviewed by the DA with the return finding that it was not a justified shooting. Oftentimes we will evaluate the cases, even though the DA might have reached that conclusion. We'll evaluate a case, just look at the risk factors, and we might recommend settlement based on a number of factors because, of course, decisions on risk are made by juries. And so there are times when we will evaluate all aspects of a case and make a recommendation to settle. But to my recollection, at least during my tenure, there have been no cases where an excessive force at that level has been deemed to be unjustified.
I think that's an important point to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, we live within a system and a society, and as we try to make improvements, we have to be real cognizant. What is it that we're trying to change? And we have to make sure that assumptions that we're making don't have an inherent, fallacy in them. A question I would have, and not for tonight, but we talk about population and the 6 million and comparing that to other cities over a period of time. I think we can compare it to ourselves over a longer span of time, and say, is it an average? Is it an aberration? Is it below average? What is it? But compare it to ourselves over a longer period of time. Also, I think Mayor Pro Tem, and I respect his thought, is talking about managing expectations. I think we have to manage expectations as it relates to the community and what one might think that the powers of such a board would be. Would they have, the ability to subpoena information, for example, or as Councilman Villegas said, if they don't have powers, it's going to be a board that talks to itself and maybe, other community members and takes real limited testimony. But in terms of actually changing behavior, which is what I think what Mayor Pro Tem wants to do, she wants to figure out, is there a way to change behavior within the department? It might be better to try to look at best practices in areas other than an advisory board that is not potentially clearly defined or has a role within the system. I also know we have a personnel board. That personnel board is appointed by us. Some could argue that some of what we're discussing here in terms of excessive use of force is already handled by them in terms of testimony and lawyers and going into great detail. So I think as we look at this, we need to be careful that we manage expectations and that we have a good understanding of where within the system this would fit and work, and also what is our desire. For me, the desire would be that somehow would make the city safer and more peaceful, and that we'd have less excessive force. I mean, that would be the intent. But I ask the question, how is that going to be achieved? And I think inherent in Mayor Pro Tem's question is, find examples, best practices of other cities where maybe it's working really well. Maybe there's something out there that we're missing, and if the desire is just to look at other cases, but again, understanding it in context, not that we're going to wave a magic wand, appoint a board and say, okay, we're done with that, let's go on to the next problem, because then we may not have solved absolutely anything. So we just have to be careful with the ramifications, consequences, unintended consequences of what we're discussing. So with that, I believe, is there a motion to continue?
Mayor, yes, I'd like to continue.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. I'll be a no, but it passes 4-2. Well, if you're a no, she can just agendize it in 2 weeks.
I could just agendize as yes, I could agendize in 2 weeks.
She just agendize in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Just do that.
Yeah, the vote was 4-2.
Let's just do a roll call vote.
Look,
we got to follow process.
3-3. She can just re-agendize.
I could just
Let's
re-agendize
just
it.
follow the process. Let's just follow the process. And she could re-agendize.
Yeah, I could re-agendize it. Yeah, it's
So
fine.
let's take a vote.
Yeah, I'm going to re-agendize.
Councilmember
Just
Tina Harrell.
re-agendize. Okay.
The motion to continue item.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Tinajero? Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor
I'm a
Polito?
no.
Councilmember Benavides?
Yes.
Councilmember Villegas?
No.
Councilmember Solorio?
No.
So she'll just re-agendize.
Separately.
And we'll be back at it in
2 weeks.
Same difference. All right. So with that, let's go on to item 85B. I think we have, Madam Clerk, do we have speakers on that one? See no speakers, I'll bring it to council for consideration. No, I'm kidding. Mike Lopez, followed by Fabi Jacome. And if you can just tell us what city you reside in or where you represent. Mike, I know you're with the SEIU. Please go ahead, sir, followed by Fabi Jacome. I don't know the address or anything. Airo Cortez. Please go ahead, Mike.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Mike Lopez, and I serve as a volunteer president of Service Employees International Union, Local 721, Santa Ana Chapter. I am also a loyal City of Santa Ana employee who's proud to have served the city community for almost 31 years. Tonight I stand before you on behalf of not just our SEIU Santa Ana brothers and sisters who serve at the jail, but for all city employees and jail employees who dedicate ourselves to serve the Santa Ana community day in and day out. Let me begin with a little background. Service Employees International Union, SEIU, is a fervent champion of social, racial, worker, and environmental justice. As such, we diligently initiate and support efforts that advance the human and environmental rights of all people, regardless of race, culture, creed, and in this case, immigration status. The City of Santa Ana recently declared itself a sanctuary city for all its residents. SEIU Local 721 applauds the city and other government agencies for having the courage to take this stand for immigrant justice. This being said, we are aware that there's a dilemma that exists at the city as a contract with the federal government to house immigration detainees. Under this agreement, the city receives approximately $7 million in revenue for all their jail services. This revenue helps the city offset the jail budget deficit, and without it, the city may experience loss of service to the community. Although we are sensitive to the community political interest groups seeking the end of the federal jail contract, and I remind you that we support the philosophy of our sanctuary city. It is the mayor and city council's responsibility to stand up for all its citizenry and to stand up for the greater good of the community by first making a vigorous attempt to continue the federal contract and avoid another loss of revenue that may translate to more loss of service to our community. After all, we have only just recently sailed out of the most devastating storm called the Great Recession, and we are only now beginning to restore services to the community lost during this pernicious economic period by rehiring direct service providers. Now, we understand the city is hiring a subject expert to study the jail and look for additional alternative revenue generating opportunities, which
Mike,
we are
can
confident
you wrap
they will
up
find.
soon, please?
We're wrapping up. We encourage you to stay this course, find humane revenue enhancing strategies at the jail, and end the jail contract after you implement those
Thank you,
strategies.
Fabi.
Thank you.
Jerome, followed by Airo Cortez.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Fabi Jacome, or Jacob, was fine. I'm the deportation defense organizer with Orange County Immigrant Youth United. I stand here today to talk to you on item 85B, the discussion on the ICE contract. For the last couple of months, different organizations, both legal, including Public Law Center, Public Counsel, Transgender Law Center, and many others throughout the state. This also includes attorneys that are willing to give up their time working pro bono cases, and grassroots organizations such as OCIYU, Resilience Orange County, and Familia have been working together to bring legal representation to the immigrants detained inside of the Santa Ana City Jail, including the many transgender immigrant women who have been and continue to be detained here. I am proud to say that as of this morning, most of the folks detained inside the facility under the ICE contract now have legal representation. Many of the processes have also been reviewed for parole, and we are actively working towards finding them sponsors and places to reside once they are released. With this said, I am asking that rather than spending city staff and your own time and resources to try to negotiate an extension of the contract with ICE, I urge you all to invest your time and resources in advocating for the release of all people currently detained at your facility by ICE. This is the only true way to support immigrants. I have spent a lot of time with all of you in this room, obviously because now you know how to say my name. Time and time again, I have heard you all saying that you are here to protect and help the undocumented community. Time and time again, I have heard some of you utter the phrase, "We shouldn't be in the jail business." And I really hope that tonight, all of you take on this position and do so by rejecting any and all efforts to try to salvage the city's immoral ICE contract. Councilmember Solorio, as you earlier said, in government there should be a sense of urgency. So right now I'm urging you to not try to salvage this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Airo Cortez, followed by Jorge Gutierrez.
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. I'm Jairo Cortez. I'm the program coordinator for the Orange County Immigrant Youth United. I am also here to urge you to allow the ICE contract to expire. Rather than spending city staff and your own time and resources to negotiate an extension of the ICE contract, I urge you all to invest your time and resources in advocating for the release of all people currently detained in that facility. That is the only true way to show support to the undocumented community and to the transgender women who you have profited from. Any proposal to perform CPR on the moribund ICE contract is malicious and dangerous. And any attempt to frame this under the guise that this is for the community's benefit is not just disingenuous, it's completely immoral. We know that this is obviously a priority both for SCIU 721 and for the Santa Ana Police Officers Association, and that this is just another step to pay back the political debt that some of you owe them. Extending the ICE contract and making space available only incentivizes ICE and upholds the system, the racist system of deportations and detention. So I urge you all to reject this and to move forward and uphold your values as a sanctuary city. Thank you.
Thank you. Jorge Gutierrez, followed by Janisette Gutierrez.
We're not related, we're just Latinos. My name is Jorge Gutierrez. I'm here representing the Transgender Law Center, and we have launched and created the TIDE program. It's the Trans Immigrant Defense Effort, and through that program, our main focus is to be able to connect, especially trans women who are detained, with legal support. And in the last couple of weeks since the program has been launched, we actually have been able to connect more than 60 trans women with legal support, and several of those have started to be paroled and released. So these are the kinds of models that I think the City Council should be focusing on and supporting, because it's working. There is community support, and we know that this is the only way to be able to release all detainees. And, you know, Councilmember Solorio, to me, in my eyes, and many people in my community, you have become the local Latino Trump.
Janisette Gutierrez, followed by Carlos Perrea, I believe, and David Carvajal.
Muy buenas noches. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Janisette Gutierrez. I'm a proud transgender woman and also undocumented. I am here to urge you to let the contract expire. I'm really tired of our communities, the transgender community and the undocumented community, being under attack daily in this country. I know that detention and these cages are not safe for my sisters. And I know this because I've been traveling around the country speaking to women who were currently detained and are also detained, including some here in Santa Ana. And the abuse and the torture and the human rights violations have to stop. And instead, I'll urge you to really advocate for one of the most vulnerable populations and invest in ways to provide legal representation, to provide access to education and other services that are much needed for our survival. And in doing so, you will do a great favor to fight against the dehumanizations that we are tired of. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Followed by David Carvajal. Followed by, I believe it's Echea Monroy.
Good evening, members of the council. And I have sent to you an article from the LA Times in which former Chief Walters in 2009 is quoted. And let's not make it seem as something else as you care about people in detention, specifically to Councilmember Villegas, Solorio, and Mayor Pulido. Because Chief Walters is quoting the LA Times saying it's a business jail model to profit from immigrant detention. Or translation, you want immigrants for sale. So it is a shame that you're even considering to bring this back at a point where ICE is even now considering to releasing the people that are inside detention. And obviously, let's name the elephant in the room, which you're paying back a political debt. And yes, it's a political debt, right? That you're trying to pay the Police Officers Association. So let's just get this over with, let it go. And next time you consider building a jail, because actually the jail was built under the premise that more people were going to be sent to the jail, translation, youth of color, incarcerated, criminalized, to be sent to that jail. So create opportunities for people, employment opportunities, stop profiting from immigrant detention, and get this over with. Thank you.
Thank you, David Carvajal, followed by Ed Chamuroy, followed by Ruben Barreto.
So just to reiterate what a lot of us are saying, I think that a lot of people in this room are ready to fully implement the sanctuary policy, the sanctuary city ordinance. We're ready to move forward and really protect our immigrant communities. Having an ICE contract, we've said it many, many times before, is contradicting. You can't have a sanctuary city with an ICE contract. We need to stop profiting off of undocumented people. We need to move forward, get out of the prison business, stop complying with the prison industrial complex. It's really bad. I mean, I work day to day with the immigrant community. Today I was sitting in my office with a woman who has a husband that is essentially dying of cancer, is undocumented, no access to health care. What are we doing still talking about detaining people in cages? It needs to stop. No ICE contract. We need to get ICE out of Santana. Thank you.
Thank you. Echea Monroy, followed by Ruben Barreto, followed by Roberto Herrera.
Good evening. My name is Edna Monroy. I'm here with CIJA, California Immigrant Youth Justice Alliance, and ICE Out of LA Coalition. As we mentioned last time that we were going to be back, right? If anything, if any of the claimed victories was symbolic, well, guess what? We're here. We're back again. Back at it again because someone is trying to undermine the community's power, the community's efforts. And so just as you are claiming that Santana is a real sanctuary city, right? You're high-fiving each other, congratulating each other, yet it's very symbolic because you are still trying to profit off the suffering of our community members by keeping the ICE contract. And so you cannot choose to be for the community, with the community, and still continuing this contract, right? And agreeing with Trump, right? So we are not here to say that we're going to wait any longer, that we're going to wait until y'all take concrete steps. The community has spoken. They are providing and actively looking for legal services for those trans sisters in there and a lot of the undocumented people in there. And so how long is it going to take for you all to really take real action, real concrete steps? We're going to continue coming. We're going to continue blasting this off, shaming you all because it's a shame. You know, this is a real shame. We cannot wait any longer. People are going to continue deporting our community members. ICE is going to be in our jails. It's already in the jails, in the streets, in the houses. So what else is it going to take for y'all to get it together and lead, right? So shut it down. No ICE in Santana, no ICE in California. We want ICE out. We want ICE to be shut down. We want the police to be defunded. And we want services such as community services, mental health services for our communities. Real steps, not symbolic steps. So, thank you.
Ruben Barreto, followed by Roberto Herrera, followed by Sandra Ortega, followed by Karen Hernandez.
Good evening, City Council. When the vote happened, Santana City leaders stepped up to declare Santana a sanctuary city. This was the right thing for the city to do. The end of the ICE contract in mid-May is an appropriate and necessary step to ensure that this sanctuary city lives up to its promise. To have continued collaboration with ICE in any way defeats the meaning of this resolution and does not serve to increase the safety and well-being of transgender women who will be rounded up to fill those ICE beds. I ask the community who is here wanting the ICE contract to expire to please stand. This community shows that they want the ICE contract to expire and reject proposals to negotiate with ICE for the extension of the immigrant detention for-profit contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto, followed by Sandra Ortega. Then Karen Hernandez, then Stephanie Urrea.
Trump, listen. Immigration is not your business. Hutchins, listen. Immigration is not your business. Solorio, listen. Immigration is not your business. Immigration is not your business. I wholeheartedly reject any expansion of Santana's ICE contract. As I have said time and time again, the city of Santana should not be in the jail business of immigration detention. Once again, immigrant rights groups and the LGBT community have shown up, and we are united against aligning ourselves with an administration who continuously seeks to undermine our livelihood. Genuine support for our community means advocating for the release of the immigrant community inside detention, especially the transgender women currently at the Santana City Jail. Stand with the immigrant community, stand with the LGBT community, stand with Santana and be a sanctuary. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Se ve, se siente, el pueblo está presente. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Sandra Ortega, followed by Karen Hernandez.
Good evening, council members. My name is Sandra Ortega from Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. Going forward and not moving backwards, that should be our theme at Santa Ana City Council. Santa Ana has been declared a sanctuary city, and this had to be done in Santa Ana. To have continued collaboration with ICE in any way defeats its purpose. I urge you tonight to allow the ICE contract to expire and to reject proposals to negotiate with ICE for the extension of the immigrant detention for profit contract. We must keep in mind that it's not about money, revenue, or budgets. It's about human lives. It's about moral responsibility. The human life is sacred. Every person is precious. People are more important than funding. And the measure of every institution is whether it threatens or enhances the life and dignity of a person. Again, we must continue to move forward and not go backwards. Humans are not a means of exploitation for narrowly defined goals.
Karen, followed by Stephanie, followed by Alexis Teodoro, followed by Jeff Letourneau.
City Council, actions speak louder than words. Today, we must stay focused and take every action and every resource to advocate for the release for all transgender women and all marginalized folks who do not have legal status. As the nation watches and the narrative of Santana change by ending the ICE contract and understanding people, especially trans women, are people and not profit. Other cities will watch closely and continue to resist and organize to get ICE out of their communities. So City Council, allow the ICE contract to expire, because if not now, then when? And if not Santana, then who? Gracias.
Thank you.
I'm here in full support of the LGBTQ and trans community, and
can you just give me your
making
name
sure
again?
that my name's Alexis Navatoro. I'm here.
Yeah, but I think I have Steffi Urrea before you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Also, that was Karen earlier, right? Karen Hernandez? Okay, so now it's Steffi, and then you're up.
Buenas noches, Santana City Council. My name is Stephanie Urrea. I said it last time I was here, and I will repeat it. We cannot afford opposition or neutrality from this City Council. We are a vulnerable community, and we cannot afford for you to be silent or neutral. Michelle said safety is #1 priority. Santa Ana ISL is not safety for trans women. Solorio is really worried about diet and health of Santa Ana residents, but not diet or health is good for trans women that are detained inside ICE Santa Ana jail. Extension of the ICE contract would only continue the criminalization of trans survival of trans women. If any of y'all are worried about their safety, then maybe we should think about community programs that will protect these women that flee bad environments. So what message are you sending to our undocumented community, to the trans women, that their identity is not worth protection? Are you telling those trans women in the back that they could be the next ones to be detained in the ICE jail? Are you telling those women in the back that they are going to continue to visit their trans sisters in jail? That is not fair for you to do to our communities. We want these trans women free. They are important to our community. They are important to the growth of our city. And we urge you to not renew the ICE contract or negotiate with ICE again. Thank you.
Alexis, come on up. And then Jeff, if you're here, please come to the front row, followed by Benjamin Vasquez and Luis Ramirez. Please go ahead.
So my name is Alexis, and I'm in full opposition of the expansion or renegotiating of the ICE contract. It should be canceled. And I urge you, actually, I urge the council that if the concern is the safety of the transgender women and queer communities in Santa Ana and everywhere, I would encourage the city to actually decriminalize a lot of things that actually put transgender and queer communities in detention in the first place. A lot of their lifestyles gets criminalized by law enforcement because they're excluded from the labor market. They're excluded for so many institutions that's supposed to be designed for people to thrive. They're excluded for being transgender. Their entire identity gets criminalized. So instead of trying to convince ICE to keep the contract, to keep them detained, I invite the city to work like with the groups that work with the local queer transgender communities and invest in those groups so that they can make sure that they create avenues and opportunities for their own community to thrive. That could be the best thing the city could do if their main concern is the safety of transgender women. I just want to repeat the call of the cancellation of the ICE contract. The city of Santa Ana is not sanctuary while keeping a contract with ICE, and I think that should be made very clear. We're not sanctuary until ICE is out of Santa Ana and until everyone, all immigrants, black, transgender, queer, Latinos, APIs, every immigrant, thrives. And thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Followed by Ben Vasquez, followed by Luis Ramirez, followed by Luis Gomez.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I speak to you as the vice chair of the Democratic Party of Orange County, the party that all but one of you are a member of, and a party that has endorsed each and every one of you at some time in your career. We come here today because the Democratic Party is the party of social justice, and I want to speak truth to power for just a minute. And that is that we were very proud when Santa Ana led the way in Orange County and became a sanctuary city. We were even prouder when you took the tough steps of slowly shutting down, too slow in my opinion, the ICE facility, and then were elated when that process was sped up. Now we find a situation where due to, although organized labor is a major part of the party, the members of the brothers and sisters of SEIU 721 and the Santa Ana Police Officers Association are putting pressure for economic reasons solely, I repeat that, for economic reasons solely, to keep this facility open. Now I want to draw your attention, that was something that was in the news 2 days ago, and that's the Lucerne County Court, Pennsylvania Court of Common Pleas, County Judge Mark Caravella. It's estimated that he took $1 million in bribes to send young black males to a private prison, and now he's going to serve 28 years in jail. I'm saying that not because I'm saying that anybody's taking bribes here, But as a point that has to be emphasized, there is no way that you can have a just legal justice system when there's a profit motive involved. If that is the only source of income, you will increase the number of people who are retained in that facilities. It is immoral. There is no moral way or kinder way to implement an injustice and cruelty. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Vasquez, Luis Ramirez, Luis Gomez, then Laura Cantor.
Hello, I'm Benjamin Vasquez. When we first started coming to you guys and bringing people to talk to you, you had witnesses telling you about the conditions in the jails. You heard how horrible things were for the transgender community in those jails, and it wasn't a safe place for them. And when the ICE contract was finished, I was happy. I was elated for all those people that was coming. And now Solorio wants to bring it back. And that's just despotic. And people are in misery. We should not be profiting. We should not profit from undocumented bodies. We shouldn't balance the budget. We shouldn't pay people. We shouldn't pay our political debts. This is really horrible at this conjuncture where we're at, because you guys are making money off of bodies of the people who are just the most vulnerable in our community. And we hope you see it, and just be human. Be human about this vote. Be human about who you are when you do this vote. This is important for many folks. So thank you.
Thank you, Luis Ramirez, followed by Luis Gomez, followed by Karen Cantor, followed by Naui Huichopochtli.
Good evening, council members. On item 85B, the discussion and possible action on ending the ICE contract, let me start by saying that any discussion is a move to further monetize on the lives of innocent people. Many of the detainees are asylum seekers. These are not criminals. They deserve to be free. We know that the majority of the people being detained and deported are being detained for minor offenses such as driving without a license, or even sometimes reaching out to authorities for help when they are the victims of domestic violence. Other detainees are transgender women. They shouldn't be detained nor incarcerated under conditions where they can't be treated humanely. Romanticizing on the idea of any possible action that doesn't advocate for the end of trans detention is nothing less than transphobic. I wonder if any of you have actually visited any of these people. Detention is detrimental to anyone as a human being, is detrimental to mental health, and it is for these specific reasons that I urge you to allow the contract to expire. Because one thing that I know these detainees need is liberation. Thank you.
Thank you. Luis Gomez, Laura Cantor, Maui, Eric Garcia afterwards. Please go ahead.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Luis Gomez, and I work at the LGBT Center of Orange County here in Santa Ana. I'm also here to urge you to let the contract with ICE expire. Some months ago, the city of Santa Ana, with the leadership of its community, took the right steps to make the city a little more representative of its residents. The current socio-political environment has gone in many directions and has caused fear and anxiety across many marginalized communities, particularly the LGBT and immigrant communities that are proud to call Santa Ana home and that are also incarcerated down the street. Those who find themselves being part of these two communities find themselves at a vulnerable intersection. I have to ask, what kind of sanctuary city does business with immigration enforcement authorities? What kind of sanctuary city profits from the incarceration of the community it vowed to protect? The only business a sanctuary city that advertises its policy protecting the local immigrant community should be doing with ICE is to advocate for the release of all people inside. To protect this community does not equal to incarcerate it. Continuing this contract would only continue to perpetuate and incentivize the hunt for immigrants in this country. Let Santa Ana lead by example, but a congruent example, not a juxtaposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Followed by Nami, followed by Eric, followed by Ivan Enriquez.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Laura Cantor. I'm the Director of Policy Advocacy and Youth Services at the LGBT Center in Orange County here in Santa Ana. Also, I'm a resident of Santa Ana. I do not believe that keeping the contract with ICE to jail transgender women or anybody will keep them safe. And I do believe that if you vote to maintain or increase the number of ICE beds to incarcerate undocumented transgender women in the Santa Ana jail, you will be creating a system where the most marginalized members of our community will be at increased risk. They will be at increased risk for being judged, targeted, criminalized, and violated. If this is a sanctuary city, it can't be a sanctuary city for everybody but transgender women. After the Sanctuary City resolution was passed, the city was lifted up by people in the city across the state of California, across the country. As the ICE contract expired, the city got more attention for doing the right thing, for standing with the people. And I believe that frightened children and frightened adults could look forward with a little less fear. Everyone was talking about Santa Ana as a model city. We are well aware of the distress caused by the Trump administration's anti-immigrant, anti-transgender rhetoric and policies. Your community is asking you to wrap this city's arms around its most vulnerable people. Decisions made about human lives cannot be based on a budget alone. They must be made with compassion and with comprehensive awareness of any unintended consequences. Look outside the box. Look at your state leaders. Look at the foundations for solutions that do the least harm to those seeking refuge here. Find another way to fix this budget. Find another way. Be the city that understands what it means in the Statue of Liberty, where it says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be breathed free." That has been the way that this country works, and it should be the way this city works. And if it's not, we're going to become something awful, something cold and ugly like our federal government is becoming. Let's not have Santa Ana be the home for an internment prison for transgender women. You need to end the contract. I know it's complicated. I've had conversations with many of you. I had a conversation with Councilmember Solorio, and he expressed his concern for the transgender women.
Thank you.
But when I brought up that we need to talk about resources and we need to talk about what we can do to get these people released, the conversation always ends there. You can find a way. You can do better. You can do better. Listen to what the people are saying.
Thank you, Laura.
Listen.
Nami, followed by Eric.
Hi, City of Santana. Just like you corrected the Jewish man about him pronouncing your name and pronounce, I'm going to correct you.
Please.
You're from El DF, you're from Tenochtitlan. You should be able to pronounce Huitzilopochtli because you...
Go ahead and spell it. Why don't you spell it?
Okay, Huitzilopochtli, you are from El DF. You should know how to say it. If it wasn't for Huitzilopochtli, there wouldn't be no
because I can't read it.
Well,
spell it.
You can Google it. Okay?
Spell it. Spell it. Can you spell it?
If you don't know what Huitzilopochtli is, then I'm sorry. You're from El DF.
Your H looks like an M.
You should know.
Your H looks like an M.
Okay, but the only times I come here, you should know by now.
Look at the penmanship. Keep going.
Okay. Hopefully. Okay, so I'm here. I'm here to speak as an indigenous person. I'm here to say that we are not effing immigrants. Just like black people can be immigrants because they were brought here as slaves forcibly, we indigenous people can be immigrants on our own land. I also want to talk about something that's always forgotten in history here. I always bring it up when I come here. The original people that were here were the Hachiman people. They traditionally lived along the coast of Orange and even Santana with the Tonva people. The Juaneños were given by the Spanish, and they were colonized by the child molester, Junipero Sierra. So it's important to know the history of the Hachiman, and they were part of the Otoaztecan language that are also our relatives, the Mexica and the Nahuatl. My daughter here, Umakala Tushma, is named after, has an Hachiman name, so you guys can know history. And it brings me to ICE and law enforcement. They have a history of going after people of color. The police here in what is now called America, the U.S., was built to round up African Americans that were running away from slavery. And now ICE is another agency that's been targeting people of color, indigenous people. Mexican people. In the 1930s, there was Operation Wetback. They didn't care if they were documented or they're
Thank you.
so-called illegals. Again, we are not illegal on our continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eric, followed by Ivan Enriquez, Angela Pereira, followed by Jimena Alvarado.
Good evening, Council. I'm here with Orange County Immigrant Youth United, OCIYU, and I'm here mainly to demand that you allow the ICE contract to expire and reject any proposal to negotiate with ICE for any extension of any sort of the immigrant detention for-profit contract. Ultimately, if the biggest concern that Councilmember Solorio has expressed with regards to caring for our transgender women has been his concern for advocating to not have families drive out to Adelanto or Texas for that matter. However, it's important to note that whether they are here or there, no incarceration is humane. And advocating, and instead of trying to keep them locally, we should be advocating as a city and advocating as a council for their release, including parole, even if it means not indefinite release. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this, on the surface at the very least, appears to be a monetary gain. And I'm here to pretty much shut down that my community and I are not a business. It is imperative that we don't continue or even consider the fact of profiting off of the backs of our undocumented community, which at the end of the day are the root and the stone of our foundation. And extending the ICE contract and making the space available for immigrant detention only incentivizes and perpetuates the persecution of immigrants in this country, particularly, obviously, our biggest concern are those immigrants who are located locally. Ultimately, an effort to sustain the ICE detention center in Santa Ana to protect transgender women will do nothing of the sort. It will be creating and ultimately, this was a test model for facilities to come, and we need to set the example that incarceration only further perpetuates a criminalization of our immigrant community. Thank you.
Ivan, followed by Angela, followed by Jimena Alvarado.
Good evening, members of City Council. I wanted to speak against the prolonging of the current contract with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I do not want our community to become the literal target of the president with his executive actions creating more staff within pertinent agencies regarding contracts, regarding our sanctuary city status. I do not want our community to become a target of this administration. I don't accept the idea that we placate ICE when it comes to this contract. There is no need for that. The federal government has quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, our city does not. And if we're going to be talking about the economic status of our city, we really need to get into, really roll up our sleeves in terms of finding a solution that's more applicable to our community. Any approach to make this contract extend longer than we know it will is asinine. It's foolish because it's a backwards approach to public policy in the city of Santa Ana. Whereas other cities in the state of California and across this country are trying to create sanctuary city policy, we have city council members that are trying to go backwards with the ICE contract. I demand that you allow the ICE contract to expire without objection. And there was a quote that I read in archives of the Orange County Register, and it's that people are not there for the political fight. You have back there plenty of people to fight this political fight against this current administration and any future executive actions to try to belittle our community and members that are voiceless, and we are going to allow them to reach out of the shadows.
Thank you. Angela, followed by Jimena.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ángela Pereira. Yo no traigo nada escrito, pero creo que lo que se ve y lo que se siente es lo que vas a contar, y porque es lo más importante. Yo estuve 3 meses y bueno, por mucho tiempo en un centro de detención, Y creo que no es un lugar muy adecuado que se diga para nosotras como personas transgéneros. Yo la verdad vengo a hablar por mi comunidad y este es un mensaje muy, muy especial para el señor Solorio. No sé realmente cuál será no sé cuál es el motivo de que usted no ceda a que se termine el contrato, pero eso no me interesa a mí no me interesa su dinero, sino que a mí me interesa mi comunidad. Y creo que las personas que están ahí encerradas somos de carne y hueso. Y hasta cuando ustedes no puedan vivir lo que uno siente, lo que uno vive en esos centros de detención, hasta ese momento van a decidir si sí o no van a cerrar eso. Les pido de corazón que se pongan la mano en el pecho y tomen conciencia de esto. Gracias.
My name is Angela Pereira, and I don't have anything prepared because when you feel something, you just tell it from your heart because this is important. I was detained. I was in a detention center for 3 months, and I can tell you that the conditions there are not appropriate for us transgender women. And I have a special message for Mr. Solorio. I don't know your motivation for not wanting to end the ICE contract, but I really don't care what your motivation is. I'm here for my community. These are people who are of flesh and blood, and if you don't live this, if you don't live this situation, you will never understand it. So please touch your hearts when you make this decision.
Jimena Alvarado. That's it.
Muy buenas noches. Al final no había decidido pasar porque estoy un poco nerviosa, ya que veo que la mayoría está en contra de que el centro de detención de las mujeres trans siga en Santana. Yo estuve detenida un día, afortunadamente, pero sé el terror que se vive un día. Ahora no puedo comprender el terror que se pueda vivir 3, 6 o hasta un año en el centro de detención de Santana, pero sé la historia de la mayoría de mis amigas y yo pido a Solorio que ceda a que el contrato de ICE no se renueve y se vaya de Santana. Muy buenas noches.
I didn't want to come forward because I was very nervous, but as I see most people are against the keeping the ICE center open, the detention center open. I was detained there for only 1 day, and it was terrifying. So I could not imagine, I could not understand people who spend there 3 months, 6 months, or a year. I know their stories. I know the stories of my sisters. And to Mr. Solorio, I want you to not renew the ICE contract and get ICE out of Santana.
Thank you. And with that, that was our final speaker. And so at this time, I'm going to bring it back to council for discussion, and I'll call on Councilmember Jose Solorio, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to start conversation, but I do have more points other than my motion, but I've thought a little bit more about what's on the agenda and how to make it more practical as well as some related steps. So I'll start with that, and hopefully there's a second, and then we can continue. To reduce the likelihood of local residents having to travel to faraway facilities to visit and help family members and friends that may be detained by ICE, and in recognition of the Mexican consulate's announcement to offer increased legal services for immigrants and local availability and access to immigration attorneys in Santa Ana, we direct staff to negotiate and execute a contract with ICE consistent with the terms of the 2006 contract. Second item, direct staff to meet with SCIU Local 721 and the Santa Ana Police Officers Association to negotiate reductions or increases in staffing as may be appropriate to adjust to the size and scope of the ICE contract. And then third, direct staff to restart discussions with other federal and state agencies to pursue use of jail facility space that isn't being used to service ICE contract needs.
So that is a motion?
Yep.
I'll go ahead and second the motion, and let's have discussion.
So, okay,
Go
so...
ahead. Do you want Juan or
let me do a little more, and then I would love to have others speak. I want to start by reading out an email that we got this afternoon from an attorney. He says, Dear City Council members, I practice immigration law exclusively. Many times my clients are detained and housed in Santa Ana. If this facility is no longer available to ICE, people will be sent further away. Eliminating the Santa Ana location will not decrease ICE activity. Although I fully understand the tremendous frustration with immigration laws and immigration enforcement, especially since the Republican administration took place, ensuring that detainees are taken far away from family and legal counsel will not help them. In the past, I would drive 2 hours to Lancaster and 2 hours back, where immigrants in detention used to be housed. Who knows where they will be sent if Santa Ana is no longer available? It could be Adelanto, Las Vegas, Arizona, or even Texas. There's already a shortage of available immigration attorneys. This will make access to representation even more difficult. As a practitioner, I really believe it's best for my clients to be housed near their families and my office. Thank you. And it's from a Santa Ana immigration attorney. One of the things I think we need to be clear about is that with or without ICE being here in our Santa Ana facility, detentions are still going to occur. Deportations are still going to occur. And, you know, do we know really that there's going to be any less activity if we don't continue with the contract? No, we don't. But we do know that if this facility is closed, they then will be transferred, because no one's getting released, folks. They've already said that. They're going to be transferred. They're going to be transferred. I'll let you guys talk it out. We're going to keep waiting. I'll let you talk. When you finish talking, I'll speak. So I could be here till 5 in the morning. Let's do it.
Let's let the council member continue, please. We all listened to you earlier. Go ahead, Jose.
So folks are going to be transferred instead to places like Adelanto, which, by the way, is a private jail. If you think the conditions in our facility or other public facilities are bad, they're much worse at private jails. In fact, there was a recent article about that, and Adelanto is the largest private jail facility in Southern California. And so if this unit shuts down, which it might, you are going to be giving more resources, more staff, more power to this private jail. Also, as many of you know, we carry democratic principles, and a core part of our democratic principles in our party is to stop outsourcing, stop privatization, and this is in fact what this item would do. Also, it would eliminate good-paying jobs, SEIU member jobs, POA jobs, other jobs, millions of dollars to resources for our communities, and those things are not good. So I think you all have read or understood what some of the financial impacts are. Really, at about the most that we've ever received under the 2006 contract was about $7 to $8 million a year. So let's say you multiply that times 10 years. That's $70 to $80 million in a community that drastically needs resources. So I want you to know that. finally, and I know many of you don't agree, but I'm still hopeful, and I'm going to fight for really the solution so we don't need to do detention, so we don't need to do deportations, and that is we need to keep fighting for comprehensive immigration reform. So for all these reasons, I do support trying to renegotiate with ICE to keep our facility local, because at the end of the day, I grew up in a working class family, a family of farm workers. I've seen families separated. When we first got here, we weren't united. And I'll tell you that some of you, unfortunately, don't know what real hurt is. You don't know that when a detention occurs, you want your families to be local, because attorneys to drive round trip to Arizona, round trip to Texas, round trip to Adelanto, it's hours and hours. And guess what? These attorneys, they charge by the hour. It's going to be an incredible hardship emotionally for any family members or friends that you know that get detained. Transportation-wise, it's going to be a challenge. And financially, it's going to be a challenge. So if you really want to help, you need to be thoughtful about that. Thank you.
All right, look, either we take a little recess. All right, let's take a little recess. Let everybody settle down a little
Let's
bit.
take a 15-minute recess. Thank you.
So what I want to suggest is we've all had some discussion on this. If people have to go, let's just call for the vote, and we'll go from there. So we have a motion and a second. I did. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No. So is it... Why don't we take a roll call vote? Please go ahead.
Councilmember Tinajero?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
No.
Mayor Polito?
Yes.
Councilmember Benavides?
No.
Councilmember Villegas?
Yes.
Councilmember Solorio?
Yes.
It's a 3-3
So
vote.
it's a 3-3. All right. So with that, I know folks have to go. Let me just indulge me a moment. Housing Authority meeting, I want a motion on the consent calendar.
Motion to approve.
And I will include the business calendar on that motion, please. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, for the record, can you please just open the public hearing, because it is a public hearing, item number 3.
Number 3, okay. Yes. It is time and place for a public hearing to approve the Housing Authority annual plan, so I'll also open it. See no speakers, I'll open it and close it. And now we'll go ahead and vote again on item 3. I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, and we have a second by Benavides. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And I believe that at this point we're down to back to the City Council meeting, City Manager comments. And
None
I
tonight.
have some speakers. I know some council members need to go. If you need to go,
No city manager comments.
we'll take it from here. All right. Sharon Portman, followed Maria del Carmen Gomez, followed by Vic Chaube, followed by Karen Perlin, followed by Ayat Englund, followed by Robert Englund.
But again, good evening.
Go ahead, speak. Pull the mic down.
Yes.
doesn't honor his word.
Good evening, Mayor Pulido and respectful Santa Ana City Council members. My name is Ilya Tseglin. I, with all my trust, presented to your attention the case of my son, and I would like that this agenda, what is injustice to my son, would be on your agenda. I would like to say, if you would come to the probate court and see the judges in probate court like Hubbard, Moberly, and Commissioner Schulte, and public defender, it's difficult to believe that we in the court. What they do with families? They divided families, they sell people, very fragile member of society, for money. They in so extent corrupted that they no respect to constitution, no respect to law, only more money put to their pocket and destroy people. I would like that you would look to my case. I trusted you, and I would like to answer all the questions, because we people not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert?
Hello, Honorable Mayor and Santa Ana City Council. This is Robert Seglin, brother of Nate Seglin. As I stated before, my brother Nate Seglin has been illegally confined in the 903 South Harmon group home, in which he has been exposed to very high amounts of drugs, such as Zyprexa and Depakote. Zyprexa for nearly 3 years, in which he has seizures and EPS. And unfortunately, thus far, there has been no reports when my brother's reporting allegedly on a daily, if not multi-daily basis of seizures and EPS, and therefore it was not reported. And although it's also the responsibility of the Adult Protective Services social worker, who apparently avoids reporting it, it would be helpful if anybody who has authority, such as an officer, to report it. Of course, it's not their normal duty. An officer's duty is to do more things, but this is a very easy thing to do, to report such things, and it would be helpful. Of course, it's outrageous, as my father was describing, where you have a public defender who is now appointed as guardian ad litem, and she has the authority to subpoena. I mean, not subpoena, she can get the medical records, and she can get the EEG results and see if he's having seizures or not. And they're concealing it, they continue to conceal it. So obviously it's the fault, I would say, is of the court, but any individual who has power, such as an officer, to enter the home and to write reports, it's not usual, but that's what I'm saying. The big corruption is in the court system. And so any help, the help that you can do to sort of breach that and maybe go through get rid of a judge who's involved in this obstruction of justice to help save my brother's life and release him. And that would be helping for his freedom. And also I would encourage you to continue your work on helping protecting individuals who might be incarcerated and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to go to council comment. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Vic Chauvet, a Santa Ana organizer from a different kind of Santa Ana, old Santa Ana. I grew up with people from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I came here to speak on the Warner Widening Project, which we had a discussion earlier on Bristol. And I went to 2 forums sponsored by the city of Santa Ana. As a result of that, they give me emails on this project and other city of Santa Ana issues. What I chose to speak is, I want it'd be important to hear a perspective on everybody on this widening project. That, you know, Delhi, the area, has a big history. I spent a lot of time in Delhi in the early 80s, so it has a lot of meaning for me. So I hope this Warner Widening Project is done in understanding this deep history of Delhi, which has so much meaning to old Santa Ana, where old Mexican Americans and old time blacks lived together. It was one time known as Little Texas. So important to preserve that history. Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments starting from the left, Councilmember Solorio.
Not right now, maybe come
Thank
back.
you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Villegas. Councilmember Benavides, we're on a roll.
Have a good night, man.
All right. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.